So AOCS ambulances arrived at the scene. One by one, they were hit, they were struck. Their bodies were gathered and buried in this mass grave. They're digging them up in their uniforms, with their gloves on. They were here to save lives, and instead they ended up in a mass grave.
Israeli forces admit to opening fire on the health workers. They maintain fighters from Hamas and the Islamic Jihad were using fire trucks and ambulances as cover. These satellite images from Thursday show Israeli military vehicles at the scene next to piled-up ambulances. Humanitarian personnel and health workers are protected under international law. But from the onset of Israel's war on Gaza, its bombardment has been indiscriminate. The UN says Israeli fire has killed more than 600 health workers. The Palestinian Red Crescent has described the killings as a premeditated crime, a massacre, and has called for an international investigation. An effort to find justice for their colleagues killed while trying to save lives. Felix Nyora, Al Jazeera.
Jeffrey Nice is a human rights lawyer and the prosecutor against former Serbian leader Slobodan Milosevic. He says the workers should have been protected under international law.
It's an apparently shocking event to which the only defense offered by Israel is that this was a case of ambulances and fire trucks being used to camouflage Hamas personnel fighters. That's a very bare assertion by them, and it has to be viewed beside, I think, the evidence, which seems to be clear, that the trucks were marked as Crescent trucks and the workers wearing clothes that identified them as such. What we should always remember is that not only do people working in humanitarian aid enjoy the protection that all civilians in conflict enjoy, but they are further specially protected because it is a crime if they are authorized personnel, and in an international armed conflict, it is a crime, to a specific war crime, to attack them if they are involved in humanitarian assistance or peacekeeping missions.
Israeli forces have carried out a series of raids and arrest campaigns across the occupied West Bank. They detained several Palestinians in Nablus, Jenin, Ramallah, and Tubas. Israeli forces accused them of planning attacks. Children were also detained, interrogated, and then released. Authorities in Jenin say thousands of houses are uninhabitable after Israeli forces destroyed them. More than 40,000 Palestinians have been forced from their homes since Israel escalated its military operations in the occupied West Bank in January. And the Israeli army has forcibly expelled 5 Palestinian families from their homes in the occupied West Bank without legal warrants. Military officials later revealed the soldiers involved acted on their own initiative. The families are still displaced, saying they've endured years of settler violence. Imran Khan reports.
From this hill, Mohammed Mahari can see the place where he lived for decades. It's less than 100 meters away, but he's not allowed to live or even go there anymore.
It's just, what have we heard most consistently over the last 7-8 weeks has been the word uncertainty. You hear it on the conference calls all the time. It's replaced AI as the most quoted term, and companies don't like it. Markets don't like it. People are kind of pulling back a little bit, waiting and see.
Listen, Ari, see if you can get the book cover up. I hate to do this because he doesn't need any help. Tom, out on YouTube, thank you so much. Barry Ritholtz, How Not to Invest. Best market book I have ever read.
Whoa.
You think that was planned? You think Barry probably planned it?
Exactly.
He's got
no, I'm hearing good things.
Mrs. Ritholtz sent that in. Joining us right now, someone who could have written How Not to Invest, Brian Belsky, Chief Investment Strategist at BMO Capital Markets. In times like this, in corrective emotion, he has been liberated by saying, stay in the market, have courage. Brian Belsky, are you still a bull this morning?
Hi, good morning, Tom. Yes, I am. And I just got back from, yesterday I just got back from being in Canada for a couple of days. So I have some unique perspective. And I just got back from,
Tell us, please.
Part of my responsibilities is to forecast the Canadian stock market as defined by the TSX index. And I'll say this, that, we have a bunch of different responsibilities there, some of which is to manage actually Canadian equity portfolios. And the majority, I'm not being flamboyant here, the majority of our Canadian clients want to sell America and just be in Canada. And we think that that is not only a tactical error, it's a longer term strategic error, given the fact that from a diversification standpoint, and given just the fundamental perspective as America goes, so goes Canada. Regardless of the outcome of this, the countries are still tied together. They're still doing business together. And I think any time in life, let alone investing, Tom, when you make decisions based on fear and emotion, they're wrong. And I think that's what we're kind of heading into. And that's why the market's here today, the next day or so, until we get some clarity. And Paul's talking about uncertainty. Oh my gosh, we're in one of these times again. So we're not changing anything.
So I guess you're of the opinion, Brian, that this uncertainty in the marketplace, it will pass to a certain degree at some time in the near future. I'm not sure if it's as soon as Wednesday, but sometime sooner rather than later.
Well, it could be today, it could be tomorrow. And I think what the problem is, Paul, is that, all of us collectively on air right now have been doing this for a long time. And I think there's a couple of problems. Number one is I believe that the near-termism has been exacerbated since COVID, that we've become so reactive. But number two is we have to deal in life, just like again investing, with things that we know. We don't know exactly when this is going to stop or change.
The institutional investors are extremely worried because of the outflows out of their funds, potentially. My personal take on this, don't use an institutional investor. All you got to do is open up an account. If you're just a personal investor, you don't have to go into a mutual fund or anything like that. Just use ETFs, do the broad index. Don't get too fancy with purchasing individual stocks. You don't need to, and it's all about the long haul. Take this opportunity to actually accumulate shares. That's what you need to do. And don't put more money in a 401k or anything like that. Just do it yourself. All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support my work by making sure that you get the products that I offer, or you can also donate. I do thousands of videos for free. All right. So to help that effort, you can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee on my web page on the bottom of the homepage. You can also be a paid member to my Patreon channel. It's the paid members and the subscribers and the ones that donate that have really helped me reach an audience to inform them about their health and wellness. All right. So that's really important, especially the aftershock of what has transpired since 2020. So with that, please help support my work by making sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. You can also be a paid member to my Patreon channel. Link is in the description of this video. You can donate on my webpage through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. All right. It's a great way to help support my work. Ask your social media to follow me. I cover a lot of stuff: scientific endeavors, domestic news, international news, the economy, finance, and health and wellness. All right. So with that said, let's do a market update here. It's the market has opened up, and the S&P 500 is now down at 5,519. VIX is elevated since the trading from last week. It's at 24 now, 0.11. The Euro USD is trading at 1.08. Oil is trading at $69.77 a barrel. And the Bitcoin ETF that I've been looking at is trading at 18.25. This is longing Bitcoin. It's a BITO. So it's at 1824. So Bitcoin is going down. And the USD Japanese yen is trading at 149.47. It's trading actually lower than what was going on last week. So that's showing a little stress in the international market. So with, like I said, we have a psychological barrier and let's call it a support level at the 5,500 mark for the S&P 500. If it breaks 5,500, which it might in the close, then you're looking at 4,800, all right, as a support level, all right? So I'll do a very detailed video about the fib sequences like I have been, so you understand where the next support level is. This can continue to go on, but don't be afraid. Do not be afraid, all right? Okay, with that said, my name is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and we are going to be covering a lot today. A lot of stuff that's going on. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support my work by getting the great products that I offer. All right, these are products that I take on a regular basis. It's part of a protocol that I follow to improve my health and wellness, improve my immune system, slow down the aging process. It works. All right, anyone that's been following me, especially over the years, notices that I'm not aging, all right, as fast as my peer group. And I'm giving you the secret on how that is. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 14 or the Max 35. All right. What this does is it helps to boost up your immune system. You take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds or 30 seconds, and swallow. You're going to improve your oral cavity. You're going to help the epithelial lining in your oral cavity and your oral pharynx. And you're going to help with that mucosal barrier. By doing that, you're improving your immune system. And when you're doing that, guess what? You don't get as sick as often. Amazing how that works. All right, so take it every day. All right, if you're not feeling well, take a tablespoon or 2 a day and then go back to your maintenance dose. I've been taking this for over 5 years, every day, and guess what? It has helped. All right. I also have very high quality structural nanosilver soaps. Now you can get them in lavender, in peppermint, and also in lemongrass and charcoal tea tree. So get a few bars for your household, help support my work. They're very high quality soaps. These are soaps that I use. And help with your health and wellness and support the work that I do. It's a win-win situation. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Now, as long as supplies last, anyone that purchases over $150 worth of product, I will be providing a free gift for you. So I'm not going to tell you what the gift is, but you get a free gift if you purchase $150 worth of items. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Okay, with that, with the elevated VIX, we're going to see, with it being at about 24, maybe hit 25 today. This is obviously about the tariffs. It's going to take some time to digest this. And then once the market digests it, then it's going to start to move up and there's going to be money flows coming in. But it's very possible that we see the S&P 500 break the 5,500 mark. And again, there is a psychological support level at 5,000. And then the next fib sequence support level is around 480 or so, 4,800. So I'll go into more detail about that in another video, because that's something that I have to spend about 20, 30 minutes on showing you what's going on. With that said, let's go to what DeSantis is saying about property tax relief in Florida.
folks in the House that set that $5 billion target. That'll be more than we've ever done by a country mile. And if that is something that's in the ball game, if that's something that they're willing to discuss, we'll accept that. But we'll come with a proposal to focus that $5 billion on reducing property taxes for people in Florida. And we have a chance. I know we want to get on the ballot, but we have a chance to do this year. So this would be kind of a opening salvo to what the main event would be in November of 2026. So with that $5 billion, I'm proposing that the legislature direct that to immediate relief for all Florida homestead owners. And if we do that, we would end up with about $1,000 in property tax cut for every homesteaded Floridian. And that will make a big, big difference. And part of the reason we're able to do this is, although property taxes are local, there is a portion of that is required local effort for state, for schools. We have a massive surplus. We can cover that through our normal budget reserves. We don't need to have people paying property taxes this year on that specific line item. So we would roll that back to zero. We'd also roll back some of the local lines and issue a rebate. And so that's how you end up getting to the $1,000 per resident or homesteaded property. And look, I mean, I know we have people that have investment properties. I'd rather focus it on the homestead.
There seems to be, I just missed the news. It looks like there was an explosion in Spain, I think it was. Hopefully the news will recycle and I'll be able to cover that.
Much of a punch, but if you're going to go up to $5 billion, you have a chance to really pack a punch. And so for middle class, $1,000 tax rebate, that's a substantial portion of their property taxes. I know some of the wealthier folks that may not be quite as much, but focusing on the middle class folks, this is going to be a really, really big deal. And again, we think it'll be likely about $1,000 per homesteaded property. Now, I think most of you guys and the realtors know better than ever how this process works and the notices and all that. So this would be something that we would see percolate throughout the year and end up with end of the year trim notices. But I think it's something that would be really, really meaningful. And if it's passed in the law now, people would know that this is coming down the pike very, very soon. But anything that we're rolling back, we do have the funding to be able to backfill. So don't anyone say, they're taken from school. No, we'll fund that. We have a big surplus. We've quadrupled the rainy day fund since I've been governor. Just over the last 6 years, we've paid off 41% of our state's debt since I've been governor. We're in good shape, and we'll be able to make it work. And we want to use that. Now, ultimately, as I said, this is just the opening salvo. We want to have a constant.
All right, I'm going to go back to Bloomberg here. I believe they're going to be talking about outflows from Bitcoin ETFs.
That's down 4 basis points. The yield on the 10-year, 4.19%, and that's down 5 basis points. COMEX gold, $3,141 an ounce. We have Brent crude at $74 a barrel. WTI crude $69 a barrel. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index up about 0.1%. Few companies making news. Francis, antitrust regulator fined Apple more than $150 million. It's over how it has to collect iOS users' data. Its shares this morning down about 0.5%. Meanwhile, Apple working to revamp its health app. The update will include an AI coach that would replicate to some extent a real doctor. And finally, to the housing market. How much do you need to make in order to afford a typical home in the majority of the U.S.? Well, according to the latest report from Bankrate, Americans need a household income of just under $117,000. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Paul and Tom.
Lisa, thanks. So if you want to comment on that in the greater unwinds here of Bloomberg 11.3 on the arc, 117,000.
I don't know.
District of Columbia, it's 240,000 in District of Columbia.
In the District of Columbia?
Yeah, 240,000 is the salary there.
It's life-changing.
All right. The S&P 500 just broke 5,500. It's now at 5,498.
0.1%. We got 8 things to talk to you, Hunter, about definitive on what you own, which is exchange traded funds. And we got to go to the next marketing concept. 6 smart guys at BlackRock sitting around the table like at every other firm going, how do we take advantage of tax-free bonds? No. How do we take advantage of private credit? Are we going to see private credit ETFs like we see BitDog ETFs?
Yes, there's already one on the market from State Street. It's only got around 20% private credit in it, so it's a hybrid. But they're going to keep pushing the envelope. There's other ones filed. But what State Street figured out, they cracked the code because a fund can only have up to 15% in illiquid investments. So private credit is illiquid, so how they go to 20? The way they solve that is by having a third-party source like Apollo promise contractually to offer bids on those private instruments. They also use firms outside of Apollo, but that seems to be the format or the blueprint for how to do this going forward.
A guaranteed bid of a locked-up investment, so I can go from 15 to 20% exposure.
Yeah, so this sets a precedent that could be interesting. We could see all kinds of stuff attempted in the ETF format. Now, I will say, the more you get illiquid things into an ETF, the more it's a hybrid closed-end fund. So when there's a sell-off and stuff freezes up a little, look for the discounts to widen. But this is not news. A lot of ETFs have wide discounts in like COVID. Muni Bond High Yield ETF had a 29% discount. So over the years, ETF investors have become used to this. So I think they'll be fine. The question is, how far does the SEC let these issuers go? BlackRock, they may not do an ETF. They might do an interval fund, but they have big plans for democratizing privates. A lot of people are like, well, they're going to just basically, the private equity firms are going to dump the bad stuff onto retail. Maybe, that's one concern, but I do think BlackRock and Vanguard also is looking into this.
Vanguard is looking into
Vanguard
this?
met with Blackstone and Carlyle over the past 2 weeks. And this
Did they meet with Belchunas?
I was over there a couple weeks ago, but no comment. No, but there are basically two firms that I wouldn't underestimate. The other thing is, the reason private assets, one of the reasons is it's so popular is the pricing, the way they price this stuff isn't exactly like mark to market. Really? It's a little mark to magic, right? You heard about this?
Yeah.
You got Cliff asked us on? Yeah. So if the ETF, if a public instrument exists and it has to price this stuff every day, look for a big difference between what institutions see and what the ETF has.
I could never do. I mean, Belchunas is small node goes in front of 1,000 people and you can hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
Because he's got a certain lightness about this.
So in a private ETF, or an ETF that invests in private assets, it'll never be 100% privates, right? You have to have liquidity.
I doubt it. Unless we get into a world where all of these private equity firms become like market makers, where the market makers themselves become good at pricing privates. I was talking to a market maker, and we were talking about Priv, the one that's on the market, and they said you would be surprised at how much stuff you can hedge using SPY E-mini futures, because what they're basically saying here is that privates are very correlated to stocks. Right, it's not like some mystery where they're like the lack of correlation is partially because they mark the NAVs in a magical way. Is SpaceX going to be that different than Tesla? Right, if it were trading on an exchange, probably not.
S&P 500 now is trading at 5,489.
7.5 down, negative 405. SPX was futures of negative 60-ish. We're now negative 90 on Standard & Poor's 500, down 1%. I got a 2.4% pullback in NASDAQ. Paul?
Record Bitcoin ETF outflows. Should this be expected? Is this telling you anything? Is this just kind of people getting out of the Trump trade a little bit?
Yeah, I was just reading Barry Ritholtz's book, How Not to Invest. He has a whole chapter on the denominator. Be wary of just talking about the numerator. The record outflows, but the denominator is so big.
Yep.
This is 3-4% of the assets.
Okay.
So I would say that given the sell-off we just had, that's pretty good that 96% of the people stuck.
Yep.
And in the past week, there has been inflows. So, again, the Bitcoin ETFs, I would say, like most ETF categories, these are just really hard investors. This is the smart money, in my opinion. It's really hard to mess with them. Where you will see some ETF, I guess we'll call it like weak hands would be in the thematic space maybe. But when it comes to beta and something like Bitcoin, which it seems like people are largely going in long term. Now let's get another 20% down. Maybe we'll see more outflows.
Eric, thanks so much. Eric Bitchute is at the margin behind the next entry of Barry Riddle's book on this. Tesla down 7-ish.
My observation with Bitcoin and the equity market is going down because of the news with the tariffs. Tariffs are going to be in place for a while. So that's, going to be downward pressure on the equity market. And Bitcoin trades with a decent correlation with the equity market, at least right now. So it behooves people to understand that Bitcoin is going to move roughly in the same direction as the equity market. All right.
Help with urgent and immediate humanitarian services.
It's essential that we get the levels of funding. We then need the access, and only then we will be able to have the impact that's required.
The government spokesman says thousands have been injured. President Donald Trump says he is considering ways to serve a third term. The 22nd Amendment says no one can be elected president more than twice. It was added to the Constitution in 1951 after President Franklin Roosevelt.
I think, honestly, first of all, if he was able to run a third term, he would be just too old. And we just, Trump is not going to have the same cognitive wherewithal now compared to when he, would be running a third term, especially running out the third term, in the third or fourth year. So I'm against forever presidents. All right. 2 terms. That's enough. I don't understand why he has to be making this kind of these stupid comments. This is the problem with Trump. I'm a supporter of Trump, but sometimes he just says things that are just so outlandish, I think, just to make headline news. I don't think he's serious about it. But if he was serious about it, it's even more dangerous. Because the thing is that we want presidents, 1, physically able, and 2, we have a government where we're not really electing a king that's going to be there forever. This is another problem that I have, where people say, Barron's going to be a president. What has he done at all on anything in his life that warrants him to be president of the United States? Very, very few people have ever heard him speak more than 2 sentences. So what's his take on foreign policy? What's his take on international, affairs? And what's his take on the economy? Oh, it must be like Donald J. Trump? Not necessarily. So the problem with people that are within the MAGA movement is that they're almost viewing the Trump family as some sort of kingship, some sort of anointed, right? And I'm a Trump supporter. I supported Trump all 3 times he ran. All right. So the people that listen to me know that I support Trump, but doing a third term, no. And this concept that his family should elevate to the presidency as a foregone conclusion, I think it's just wrong-headed. It's the same problem that we had with the Bushes. Our government system is not, it's not based on some sort of family unit that will be elevated to the presidency. And it's just wrong-headed. Now, I know why it's happening. A lot of people in the United States have this need in their soul to have a savior for them. It's because of a religious construct. I understand that. All right. But in politics, you see that when things are going wrong in the world, they're looking for a savior that will be elected to office. And then it's assumed that they should be staying in that office for infinity. All right. Or a representative within the family unit gets elevated to the presidency. That's wrong-headed. That's completely wrong-headed. That is not the government system that we have. And it's what it is emblematic of is a failure of understanding that there are other people that are just as good, if not better, than the offspring of this leader, whoever that is. So we want the same problems that we had with the Bushes, with the Trumps. Is that what we're looking for? It's idiotic. If anyone thinks that Barron Trump, without knowing anything about his politics, without knowing anything about his experience, because he's young, he doesn't have any experience. What, out of this MAGA movement and alt media movement, what makes you think that he would elevate to the presidency or should elevate to the presidency? The same problem with JFK Jr. There was nothing he did that would warrant him to be elevated to the presidency. But a lot of people thought he would. Why? Because he was the offspring of JFK. Stupid thinking. That's stupid thinking. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the toothpaste. This is a structural nano silver toothpaste. It's the best toothpaste that you can purchase, way better than anything Alex Jones sells. This will help with your oral cavity health. It will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help with your gum line, reduce inflammation at the gum line. And good oral hygiene will help with your vascular system and your valves. A lot of people that are older that have bad oral hygiene, what will happen is that it will perturb your vascular system and perturb your valvular health. And bad valves is a big problem for your heart. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get this toothpaste. Get a few tubes of it for your household. Help support my work and help support your health. Again, if you purchase $150 worth of product, I will give you a free gift. I'm not going to tell you what the gift is, but until supplies last. But you get a free gift if you purchase $150 worth of product. But with the toothpaste, get a few tubes of this for your household. It's very high quality, no fluoride. Fluoride makes you stupid. And if you take too much fluoride, guess what? You start thinking that Barron Trump should be president of the United States with no reason. Why would you want something if you don't have any reason for it? That's called idiocy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the products that I offer. Use discount 5, all caps, discount 5, and you get $5 off. See, people that want to push offspring or family members of a president to elevate to the neck to be president, that's promoting an aristocracy. That is not what our founding fathers wanted. Not at all. But there's a lot of people that need a savior. They have to have a savior because they feel inept. They have to feel as though someone's going to be there and save them.
BlackRock categorizes it as 3 things. So first is, income ETFs, which give you a certain payout every month, or buffer ETFs, which have buffers, and then accelerated strategies. These are the 2 times, 3 times leverage with a cap. It's really a little tricky to understand. Everyone has a different phrase, but the important thing here is they have a big bet, which is they say in 2030, these will hit $650 billion in assets, which is 3 times the amount. And when BlackRock
all right,
makes
let me give you my
Right.
perspective of what just happened here. All right, so the S&P 500, while I was talking, bottomed out at 5,488 and then started recovering. It's at now 5,520. So what is happening here, all right, is that you're having algorithmic traders coming in and buying the dip intraday. Now, will this maintain? I don't know. As that was happening, the VIX spiked at 24.8 and now dropped down to 23.77. So there's some, you're going to have a lot of buyers at this 5,500 mark within the algorithmic trading and internet and the institutional traders here. But I suspect this thing's going to march down to 5,000 here. Not today, obviously, but maybe within a week or two. It depends on what's going on internationally.
200 launches, and half of those are derivative space.
It's just great to me. What is a derivative space? Aren't they just trying to get by Apple and hope it goes up?
So a lot of these strategies, they've existed before when you do income accelerated and etc., but they're not packaged into an ETF. This is why it's easier to sell it to RIAs, because just one click of a button and you have whatever complicated strategy that you have.
What's the yield on these? How much do they gross it up the yield?
It depends, but
200 beeps?
They could go up to that, and some are even 3 times leverage, but these are more expensive than passive.
You should have seen my red herring on my triple leveraged all cash fund. Isabel took a red pen to it and tore it to shreds. Well, it was just unfair.
It looks like in the marketplace, Isabel, the high conviction Wall Street bets unravel in Trump trade review. This Trump trade thing, long dollar,
yes.
Long risk assets, pro-government, it's not working out for people.
Yes, if you thought that just going all in on crypto, smaller companies, Tesla, everything America first, all the America first ETFs barely saw any inflows, then you're caught wrong-footed, because I think the real Trump trade is really diversification. And it sounds boring, but we've seen last week that the multi-asset portfolios, they're the ones that really won.
And she's getting this wrong. What's happening is that the market goes down and, quote, America first Trump trade, all right, if there is such a thing, is about purchasing during that dip. The market starts to digest the tariffs news. The companies start to be pushed for building manufacturing in the United States. That's depending on the type of manufacturing. If it's light manufacturing that's easy to transfer over, you're talking about months, 6 months, a year. For heavier industry, you're talking 2 to 5 year movement of plants back to the United States. So it just depends. Like chip fab plants take 2 years to build. All right. Subassembly stuff for automotive takes 2 years to build. All right. So you're going to have the market digest the tariffs. And then there's also at the end of the year, this tax reduction that will be passed. And as you're accumulating equities during it being low, it's going to start moving upward with that tax policy. Okay. So you're going to see huge benefits near the end of the year of staying calm and just buying in. And it will go through 2026. All right. This strategy. So that's the smart play on this. It's a longer term play. And yes, you're going to see some market volatility. But when 2 years comes in, so you're talking about the third year of Trump's administration, you're going to start seeing manufacturing prowess to increase, and definitely into the fourth year. All right. So this is a longer term play that if this works out the way I think it will be very beneficial for the Republican Party and not for the Democratic Party. But the pain has to happen right now. It's kind of similar to if you are building let's say you're a developer and you bought an older building and you have to do huge renovations. At first, it's a lot of demolishing and rebuilding, right? And it's an eyesore in the community because of all this construction and all this stuff. But over time, what happens is that there's something new, something more beneficial to the community or more efficient for its investors because there's cash flows that are coming through the building and all this stuff. All right. So, but it takes time. And that's what's happening with this economy. There is a demolition that's taking place for a rebuild. And that rebuild of manufacturing, you're going to see the huge benefits of that in the third and fourth year of Trump's term. All right. But on the short end, the next 6 months, you're probably going to see equities not performing as well as you're used to. But that's the time to buy, because once they pass the tax cuts, then the smart money is going to want to boost up the inflows of these ETFs so they can benefit from a lower tax with capital gains. When they have the capital gains, they want to benefit from those taxes. And they're going to want to suck up all of the benefits of those taxes just in case the Democrats get in and control the House and the Senate in the midterm elections, which I don't think will happen, but it's possible. So do you think that Wall Street and the smart money is just going to sit there and not let the market go up when they get a gift from Trump with tax reduction? Don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. All right, while we're waiting for them to recycle their news, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I've partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we've developed these deodorant bars that are dual purpose. You use them as a deodorant, but they also help to detoxify your body. They're made from essential oils from the Himalayas, very high quality, no aluminum, no baking soda, all natural ingredients. You can get it in citrus, and you can also get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. It's for males and females. Get a couple bars for your household. Help support my work and help support your health. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get a few bars for your household. Again, if you purchase $150 worth of product on my store in an order, you will get a free gift. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you will get a free gift as long as supplies last. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get those products. Purchase $150 or more, and you do get a free gift. Use discount 5, and you get $5 off. All right, with that said, let's go back to live now here. Let's go to live now here.
So that is expected to get underway any moment now. And we did want to let you know that we also are going to be airing this in its entirety on our YouTube page. And on your screen right there, we have put up a QR code. So if you want to listen in to this hearing without commercial interruption, we invite you to head over to our YouTube stream. We are going to be airing the entire oral arguments right there on our page. All right, in the meantime, on this Monday morning, time right now coming up on 10:05 Eastern, 7:05 Pacific, we're going to take this opportunity to step away for a brief break as we are anticipating the Supreme Court arguments to get underway, and also the New York City Mayor's event on Axe the Tax as well. We'll be right back.
All right, let's go to Mark Levin here. He's talking about judges are eviscerating our republic. And so I'm sure he's going to have a coronary blowout.
If you own NVIDIA, this could be the most important video you will ever watch. Because while millions of investors continue to blindly pile into the...
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin Sunday. Thank you for being here. We have great guests. Victor Davis Hanson hasn't been on for a while. Senator David McCormick and his wonderful wife, Dina Powell McCormick. I've never done a couples interview, but we're going to do it, and you'll see why later. All right, folks. What we have right now, and this is very serious, is an authoritarian judiciary, which is creating an authoritarian republic. These judges. They're at war with representative government and the consent of the governed. This is the core of our system and distinguishes it from all others. Your involvement in our government. Unelected trial judges working at the behest of hundreds and hundreds of radical left-wing groups who represent the Democrat Party and the American Marxist movements is usurping usurping your franchise, your vote, usurping your constitutional system. We, the people, are the sovereign, not the judges, not any part of the government, not these organizations. Tyranny comes in many forms. You can have a single despot in legislative or one-party tyranny. You can see that in California and some other countries and states. And a judicial tyranny. The latter was promoted by Woodrow Wilson in a number of his writings in the early progressives, aka the American Marxists. They said the way to control America, we talked about this, is top down through the courts and the bureaucracy. Well, today the courts are protecting the bureaucracy at the behest of the Democrat Party, and there are hundreds and hundreds of radical left-wing organizations. So when the judges destroy the rule of law and separation of powers in name of upholding the Constitution, they're liars, they're frauds, they're tyrants. That's what they are. And they are eviscerating this republic right in front of our eyes. They are doing to our country what the King of England, what the Confederacy, what the Third Reich, what the Soviet Union, and what the Communist Chinese cannot do to our country. Don't let anybody fool you. Just because it's not happening all at once, although it's pretty fast, and it's going through our legal system, so-called, doesn't mean it's not happening. It is. Now, this was planned and plotted years ago. Here we have a piece from outside the Beltway. The sprawling network of Democratic officials, progressive activists, watchdog groups, and ex-Republicans, and other Trumpers, has been taking extraordinary steps to prepare for a potential second Trump presidency. Drawn together by the fear that Mr. Trump's return to power will pose a grave threat not just to their agenda, but to the American democracy itself. They fear us, we the people. They've created this massive edifice and construct with 2.5 million bureaucrats, with God knows how much money. We really don't even know, but it's in the multi-trillions of dollars. Almost 500 departments and agencies, thousands of divisions and offices. You cannot have the consent of the governed when we, the governed, have no idea what these people are doing or who they are. You cannot have a representative republic when the vast majority of the laws that we live under, with penalties and fines, including criminal penalties, are laws that we don't even know are being made. They're being made by this construct. They're being defended by the courts. They're being pushed by these radical groups that work with the bureaucracy. That's not the American system. The early time.
I mean, we're literally seeing the erosion of our constitutional freedoms through almost judicial overreach or activism, if you want to use that word. These people on the Democratic side are using the judicial system, our legal system, as a means to hide and promote their agenda and slow walk certain policies. Look at what's happening with the judicial system and Trump, for example. Trump wants to strengthen the border, reduce crime, make immigration legal again, all right? But you have activist judges that are trying to slow walk his policies, right? There's a big problem in America. We're losing the ethos of what our founding fathers wanted in this country. And the ultra-lib movement is eroding. Now, what Miss Taiwan, for the ones that listen to my show and know who Miss Taiwan is, she is, when she talks, she's basically saying in the schools, in the country, there is a takeover in the United States. It's very reminiscent to elements of Maoism that was going on during the early days of the CCP. Now, I firsthand saw communism and ultra-socialism on campus at Harvard University with my own eyes. And these are the individuals that are, quote, the elite. These are individuals that are going to get into government. Case in point, double Harvard grad. The mayor of Boston, all right? I think her name's Wu. She's Harvard College and Harvard Law. She is super ultra lib. All right. You really think that Boston is a clean, safe, and prosperous city? Not even close. Not even close. Problems with New York because of ultra libs running the show and slowly eroding the safety and the prosperity of the city. And I personally think that New York, from the beginnings of the country's foundation, New York City has been kind of like a heartbeat. All right. And it's pumping the blood through the nation and perfusing the nation through all of its arteries, through all of its roads and train systems and all this. But there's a heartbeat that is happening within our country, that its centroid is New York City. Now, if the heart is weak, do you think that the perfusion in the United States is going to be good? Now, we can use terms instead of medical terms. We can just use finance. Where do you think all of this finance is coming from in the United States? Finance is New York. All right. So if the heartbeat of finance is starting to weaken, all right, if the city is becoming sclerotic, all right, the perfusion and the health of the rest of the country will start to decline. Now, if you attack systems like DC, if you attack systems, organ systems like DC, Washington, DC, because of the politics and the financial, then you have weakened the country. Now, we need to wake up. We can't let ultra liberals weaken these organ systems, or the country will die.
I am at scale of the planning of these people underway to push back against a potential second Trump administration are without precedent. The loose-knit coalition is determined not to be caught flat-footed, as many were after his unexpected victory in 2016. They go on. Interviews with more than 30 officials and leaders of organizations about their plans revealed a combination of acute exhaustion and acute anxiety. Activist groups that spent the 4 years of Mr. Trump's presidency organizing mass protests and pursuing legal challenges, ultimately helping channel the energy into persuading voters to oust him from power in 2020, are now realizing with great dread that they have to resist him all over again. Oh, I'm sorry. These are the same people who did Lawfare 101, unleashed holy hell in courts throughout this country, federal, state, and local, and you know the story, violated our rules of ethics, uses a SWAT team, on and on and on, to try and prevent Donald Trump from being a candidate, prevent him from being president, bankrupt, and on all the rest. This is where they now are. A common tactic to push back against the first Trump administration was through litigation that tied up his policies in court. Sometimes that work succeeded in blocking actions entirely, and in other cases delayed those policies from taking effect. And that is exactly what they're doing, but they've quadrupled down. They're raising millions of dollars, millions, tens of millions, perhaps billions. Here's Politico.
Just look at what the Democratic Party does whenever there is a Republican nominee for the Supreme Court. They have rioting in their house, at their house. They demonize the individual, make up stories, try to have them drop out of the nomination, or demonize them to such an extent where they won't get confirmed. They're thugs. The Democratic Party are thugs. Now, what's the genesis of the Democratic Party? Right? They have been a party of slavery from inception. But they want you to believe that they're for the minority. No, they just want the minority voting bloc. Stay on the urban plantation and vote Democrat. That's what they want.
Money from the bureaucracy, and this is them in 2024. Now, Democratic attorneys around the country are already gearing up for the possibility of a second Trump administration by beginning to map out an aggressive legal strategy to fight him again in court, this time with a fresh sense of urgency. Democratic attorneys general are exploring hiring outside experts and dispatching staff to study areas of the law anticipated to come under attack, like reproductive health, immigration, and the environment. You see it happening right before your eyes. The early but serious preparations are an acknowledgement that a second Trump presidency would entail these lawyers filing lawsuit after lawsuit against the federal government to mitigate what they view as a significant threat to democracy and individual rights. Threat to democracy. They are destroying democracy. What's happening in private conversation inside Democratic Attorney General's office? The Marxists, the Democrats, their front groups, some of them are nonprofits, meaning they're using our tax dollars, working with the government unions. This is it. This is the ruling class. This is their political party. This is her ideology against we the people, undermining the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, and our sovereignty. This is the battle of our era. This is the battle of our generation. And it's taking place right in front of your eyes right now. More. Number of injunctions halting Trump policies trounced his predecessors by double. Fox News, this was the other day.
I'm a little concerned of Mark Levin's health, all right? I'm afraid that he's actually going to have a heart attack during this show. So don't be a Mark Levin, and make sure that you help with your cardiovascular health. How do you do that? Well, thank you for asking. You can take supplements and take a holistic approach. Proper diet, proper exercise, proper supplementation to bring down inflammation, bring down your bad lipid profile, soak up free radicals, soak and take supplements that actually pull some of that depositing out of the plaque over time. That's a great way to do it. Now, I have a cardiovascular box. It's called the Longevity Cardiovascular Health Box. And it has lots of supplements to do just what I just said. But if you can't afford that box, you can't afford all those supplements, you can try this stack that will help with your cardiovascular health, but also your immune system. And that is ashwagandha root will bring down cortisol levels. So that's going to bring down the stress in your bloodstream, all right? Bring down the stress. High cortisol levels are immunosuppressive when it's chronic. So by bringing them down, you're going to improve your immune system. But also by bringing down that cortisol level, you're bringing down that inflammatory response. Also, ashwagandha root helps with your blood glucose levels. So with blood glucose levels being lowered now, you're reducing the stress and that inflammatory response at the vascular level. And also high glucose levels are just overall systemically inflammatory. So you want to bring that down, and what will happen is your immune system will get better. But by bringing down that vascular inflammation with the ashwagandha root, you're reducing the chances of building up plaque. Turmeric is an antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals. And when you soak up free radicals at the vascular level, you're reducing the oxidation of LDL. LDL oxidizes bad. That's the reason why you want to bring down your LDL levels and soak up free radicals. So turmeric will soak up those free radicals, but also turmeric will help bring down inflammation. And by bringing down inflammation, you're helping with your immune system and your vascular system. And when you're bringing down that inflammation at the vascular level, and you're soaking up those free radicals, and you're bringing down your cortisol levels, and you're controlling your blood glucose levels, you're reducing the chances of plaque buildup. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric and the ashwagandha. Very high quality products. Stack these, help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. If you want to supercharge the cardiovascular stack, get the Longevity cardiovascular box that I have. And again, if you spend $150 or more, you get a free gift. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. All longevity boxes, all anti-aging boxes are at a discount, built-in discount, compared to purchasing the products individually. So I've tried every way possible to get very high quality products in your hands to stop the crazy train of America health. Americans' health is poor primarily because of lifestyle. And you can change that. But it's not just supplementation. It's also proper diet and proper exercise. You want to get that blood flow going, right? You want to improve the quality of food that you eat. If you're eating poor quality food, you're going to be more inflamed. If you're drinking water that's not filtered, you're putting toxins in your body, and that's inflammatory. So do you really want that? Well, it's up to you. But I just gave you a recipe on how to improve your health and wellness. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you use discount 5. And again, you spend $150 or more on an order, you get a free gift until supplies last.
This is because, as Chuck Schumer said, he put 235 so-called progressive Democrat Party Marxist ideologues on the court at the trial court level. There's about 700 judges at the trial court level. They're the lowest level of judges. Yet, as for now, they have the most power. One judge issuing a national order to cover the whole country, even though they're supposed to be in a district. You're appellate judges. No one judge, Court of Appeals, no one judge can issue an order like that. On the Supreme Court, it takes 5 justices. But these judges, powers unto themselves, one judge having a petitioner who cherry picks, who form shots, who finds that judge, gets everything they want. Everything they want, because they're trying to destroy you, the electorate. Donald Trump's mandate before it can even get done. Trump's first administration faced 64 injunctions out of a total of 127 nationwide injunctions, which are utterly unconstitutional, issued since 1963. We've had 127 of these nationwide injunctions since 1963. Half of them during Trump's presidency. There were 32 injunctions issued against Bush, Obama, and Biden collectively since 2001, meaning the first Trump administration was on the receiving end of double the amount of nationwide injunctions than his 2 predecessors and successor combined, according to the April 2024 edition of Harvard Law Review. Now, the Harvard Law Review found there were 6 injunctions issued against the Bush administration, 12 against the Obama administration, 14 against the Biden administration. Trump's return to office this January has brought with it more than 120 lawsuits, we're now exceeding 130, from activists, government employees, others targeting his executive orders and actions. The lawsuits have resulted already in nationwide orders and actions, that is injunctions, including 15 in February alone. President Trump's first year in office, judges issued a whopping 20 nationwide injunctions, an 8-fold increase. This matches the entire 8-year total of such injunctions issued against President Obama during his 2 terms. We're now at 30, matching the total number of injunctions issued against the first 42 presidents of the United States combined. Something gone wrong here, America? Former Trump administration Attorney General Bill Barr added in remarks later in 2019 that there were only 27 nationwide injunctions in the entire 20th century, compared to 37 at the time against the first Trump administration. And it's only gotten worse. The Harvard Law Review found that the judges who issued the injunctions against the first Trump administration were overwhelmingly ordered by judges who were appointed by Democrats. Democratic appointed judges ordered 92.9% of the injunctions against President Trump, meaning that 5 of the 64 injunctions were ordered.
And judges are supposed to be impartial. You know, justice is blind, right? Lady Justice is blind. So the balance of the balance of a judgment isn't biased. Well, the data is showing that that's not the case. The judges are extremely biased.
By Republican-appointed judges only. Republican-appointed judges ordered all 14 of the nationwide injunctions against the federal government under the Biden administration, but there were 14. It's like a day in the park in the Trump administration. Who are these organizations and what are they? I want you to take a look at this. Let's pull that up and scroll it down. 280 organizations, coalitions launched multi-million-dollar legal effort to combat threats to people, democracy expected in Trump-Vance administration. This group is Democracy Forward. They come under different names. They create different legal fictions so they can be nonprofit or activists, rate.
Like Democracy Now. I mean, think about that. Democracy Now. You know, with a fist up in the air. Democracy Now. It's just a bunch of rioters with blue hair.
Led by Mark Elias. Remember him? He was Hillary Clinton's lawyer, campaign lawyer. in 2016. This is the guy who went all over the country trying to change the legal standards for election to affect the 2020 election, which he did. This is a very loathsome guy, this guy, as far as I'm concerned. He's the worst of the worst. And this is the Democracy Forward document that they put out some time ago in December 2024. Democracy 2025, one other of their names, brings together experts and advocates across wide range of litigation, advocacy, and policy groups to deploy swift legal action. Today, a large coalition of leading pro-democracy organizations, just like the Communist Chinese or the North Koreans or the communist regime in Cuba, they always talk about democracy. Like George Orwell said, the most loathsome genocidal authoritarians claim that they're Democrats, little d Democrats. Well, so do these radical left-wing operations. Multi-million-dollar effort. Now, when you consider the state attorneys general involved, and they're using state money, all these organizations are involved, the cost of the courts that are involved in it, we're talking billions of dollars in direct and indirect resources, billions of dollars, trying to thwart the result of the election and thwart this president. Why are they so aggressive with this president, with him? Because this is the first president in modern American history who has been effective in taking them on. This bureaucracy, this rule by bureaucrats and red tape, this regulatory state that drives up your costs and your taxes directly and indirectly, these unelected judges, Woodrow Wilson talked about it, Franklin Roosevelt talked about it, they're in nirvana. As far as they're concerned, they'd rather not have elections. They'd just rather have the unelected parts of the government control everything, top down, not bottom up. Democracy 2025, resourced by Democracy Forward. Let's look at that list again, please. Includes a growing roster of 280 plus legal, expert, and advocacy groups, 800 plus individuals representing millions of people, they say, communities all over the country. Sure they do. Do they stand for a vote? No. Monitoring the activities of far-right organizations. Anybody who doesn't agree with them is far-right. Many coalition members are prepared to swiftly bring litigation should the Trump-Vance administration undermine our national security, and on and on and on as they try and usurp the election. The groups in the coalition are no strangers to using the courts to challenge unlawful action and winning. The first Trump administration legal challenges filed by coalition members, as well as Democratic attorneys general, were largely successful, and they go on. So this is a massive conspiracy and collusion to undermine we the people. And the big law firms are involved too. You got the public sector unions, you got these crazy radical left-wing groups, ACLU, and they're hundreds and hundreds of them, all coming together. The freak show of the radical left, spending hundreds of millions, billions when you include indirect expenses and the cost of the courts and everything. And keep in mind, they're not filing just regular lawsuits. They want emergency cases, temporary restraining orders, so the court has to put them at the top of their list. Temporary injunctions, permanent injunctions, orders, emergency orders. So our district courts are getting loaded with these cases. Loaded with these cases. Now we have more. The ADA Journal, what a disreputable organization that has become. Several big law firms and at least 3 U.S. Supreme Court practitioners are representing plaintiffs suing the Trump administration. Okay, the slip and fall lawyers, the worst of the worst. The biggest of the ambulance chasers are involved. So the entire legal infrastructure, the entire Democrat Party infrastructure, the entire state attorneys general, the Democrat side infrastructure, the non-governmental organizations, the think tanks, the unions for the bureaucracy, they are all together in a massive coalition to fight Mr. and Mrs. America. They say they stand for democracy. They just lost an election, and now they're trying to destroy it. They stand for democracy? No, they're tyrants. They stand for tyranny. Well-known attorneys involved in the litigation include Neil Cottrell, who recently joined Milbank from Hogan Lovells, Seth Waxman. These are former solicitors general, as an example. And Wilmer Cutler, Pickering, Hale, and Dorr. And Paul Clement, shame on you, who left Kirkland and Ellis to form Clement and Murphy, reports Law.com and Reuters. Smaller firms and legal organizations are also involved, and they're just naming some of them. the American Civil Liberties Union, its foundation, its affiliates, Lambda Legal, Democracy Forward, we just mentioned, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, the National Security Counselors Firm, Lawyers for Civil Rights, and immigration rights groups. Democratic state attorneys general are also filing local challenges. According to Law.com and Reuters, the big law firms are involved. Who are they? Wilmer, Cutler, Pickering, Hale, and Dorr, Hogan Lovells, Jenner and Block, Ropes and Gray, Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher, Arnold and Porter, Kay Scholler, Perkins Cooley, oh yes, Milbank, and on and on and on. The lawyers, the bureaucrats, the judges, the radical left-wing activists, oh yes. As of this moment, and I'm sure there'll be more by tomorrow, 139 lawsuits have challenged Trump's policies. Take a look at this chart. Here's how they break down by topic, according to Just Securities Litigation Tracker. In other words, they are involved in every single aspect of a president of the United States authority as the head of the executive branch, challenging everything, bringing it to their favorite judges and into their favorite courtrooms, slowing things down, trying to throw a wrench in the process, trying to undo the past election. This is not democracy. We had never seen anything like this before. With democracy, we would see it every election. No. This is an absolute assault on your franchise and your vote. This is an absolute assault. They talk about insurrection. This is an insurrection. We've never seen anything like this. It's the lead up to the election where they're trying to take out Donald Trump, trying to take him off ballots, trying to bankrupt him, trying to put him in state or federal prison. I mean, think about that. Step back and think about it. And now he wins an electoral landslide, an electoral college landslide. He wins all 7 battleground states. He is swept into office, not just elected, swept into office by the American people. And here comes the permanent government. Here comes the entrails of the permanent government, all these lawyers and these legal groups who've grifted off of you, the taxpayer. They want waste, fraud, and abuse. They benefit from it. They want bloated government. They benefit from it. They want it all. And so when Trump is tackling it and Elon Musk is exposing it, they need to be stopped. 139 lawsuits. What are they challenging? The structure of the government and personnel, immigration and citizenship, civil liberties and rights, government grants, loans, and assistance, so-called diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, so-called transparency, actions against the FBI and DOJ employees. Yeah, I'm firing some of them. The environment, removal of information from government websites, other, federalism. Can you think of any other aspect of the federal government? I can't. And then we have the courts are delaying Trump executive actions. Take a look at the next chart. Judges have blocked the implementation of some of President Trump's policies in part or in whole through litigation. It's ongoing. Appeals are likely in many cases. John Roberts, you better step up to the plate and take care of this, or we're going to lose this country. And let me tell you something one more time, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't even about President Trump. President Trump is your representative. This is about you. If they can do it to a man of his support, broad-based support, if they can do a man who is courageous and as strong as he is, can you imagine these Republican wimps, what they'll do to them? And can you imagine if they win here this round, this battle over liberty versus tyranny, what the Democrat presidents will now get away with? This is precedential setting. This is tyranny. This is judicial despotism. This is authoritarian republicanism, small R republicanism. That is what you're staring at right now.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products that I offer. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Let's talk about the lozenges and the drops. Now, we're going into the allergy season, so the moment you have that irritation, all right, take the lozenges or the drops right away. Have some drops and lozenges at home or at work. You never know when you're going to have that problem. You want to mitigate it right away. Trust me. All right. You can get it in elderberry zinc for the lozenges. You get 21 in each bag. And also the Manuka honey. lozenges. Get a few bags for your household. Or you can get the drops, which are smaller. You get 100 in each bag. You can get it in blueberry, in cherry flavor, and also in honey and lemon. Honey and lemon. The honey and lemon is very popular. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The drops are in a new packaging, same high quality product. I think the packaging looks a lot better than before, but please go to my store, get a few bags of the drops and the lozenges. Be prepared. You never know when you have to mitigate that irritation. Now, taking a good probiotic is really important. All right. I have two types. I have a powdered version for the ones that like to take the powdered supplements and mix it with soft foods or with filtered water, or the veggie cap version. Both are very high quality. Take it every day. And when you take a good probiotic every day, you're going to bring down inflammation at the intestinal tract level. That's going to improve your mucosal lining within the inner lining of your gut and improve your immune system. Now, what happens when you improve your gut biome is the mucosal lining is going to get thicker, which is good. And also your concentration of IgAs will improve. That's a type of antibiotic. That's a type of antibody that is prevalent within the mucosal lining of your gut. It's really important. Now, by bringing down that inflammation, improving that immune system, you're also improving your ability to absorb nutrients and break down your food. And that communication will improve between your gut and your liver and your gut and your brain. Really important. You'll also notice that your skin, your hair, and your nails will improve. You'll be able to concentrate better. You'll be able to sleep better. You'll be less irritable. So lots of tangential benefits by just improving your gut biome. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the powdered probiotic that I have or the veggie cap version. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Anyone that purchases $150 or more will get a free gift until supplies last. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can also use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Okay, let's go to CNN and how Dr. Fareed Zakaria is commenting about the sweeping tariffs. Looks like he's interviewing someone for his show, so let's drop into that.
See this? This is a 400-ounce bar of solid gold. Back in the 20s, this could buy you a decent house. And so could this.
Liberation Day is almost here. That is what President Trump has dubbed April 2nd, when he says America will get money and respect back by imposing a suite of tariffs potentially around the world. What might these tariffs hold for the U.S. economy? Joining me now is Michael Froman. He was U.S. Trade Representative for President Obama and is currently the President of the Council on Foreign Relations. Mike, welcome. I want to begin by showing a chart, just a simple chart that gives you the average tariff rate on imports to the U.S., starting in 1947 when they were about 8%, and then they go basically, it's a straight line down all the way to 2015 or so, it's under 2%. And now if you look at the proposed Trump tariffs, they take you right back up to around 8%. In other words, reversing 50, 70 years of downward movement on tariffs. It feels like Trump is taking the United States and the world into...
Well, let's just take one data set and cut it through and not really explain on how the manufacturing base has been gutted through the last 35 years, Dr. Fareed Zakaria. Let's not look at the mosaic, right? Because Dr. Fareed Zakaria always gets it fucking wrong.
I think that's right, Fareed, and it depends a lot on what he actually announces on Wednesday. There's a lot of uncertainty still about whether it will be applied to the whole world or to the 15 markets where we have the biggest trade deficits or some other lesser impact. But potentially, we're moving away from the rules-based system that was embodied, as you said, in about 80 years of of work on the international scene to create the GATT, to create the WTO, to create a series of rules that now more than 160 countries live by, and the U.S. is now going to potentially move into a world where we're doing everything on a bilateral basis. And one question is, how do the rest of the world respond? One, they'll respond by retaliating against us, but will they continue to follow the multilateral rules-based system, or will they too begin to do a series of bilateral deals, and will the work of the last 80 years basically be undone?
And it's worth pointing out that 80 years has coincided with enormous rises in global standards of living, prosperity, and in American standards of living. But tell me this, Mike, how much of this is, leverage that he is using to get
an American standard of living? All this globalization really improved the average American standard of living, where you have people used to get out of high school or college and be able to have a family, get a good job, have a family, be able to save money for a vacation, put their kids in school. Now you have kids that are coming out of high school and college, and they have to live in the basement of their mom's home because they can't find a job or they're underemployed. And they sure as hell can't save enough to have family creation or to buy a house. No, the standard of living has gone down for individuals that are coming into the market that are young. They're coming out of college or out of high school. You know why? Because we threw away our manufacturing base and the economic clustering started to die off. That's why I was saying, if you start affecting the financial system in the United States, if you view it as it's all about just immediate gains in money, and you're not looking at the long-term effects, that heartbeat from New York is going to die. You need strong manufacturing. One, it gives us military prowess. But secondly, there's so much economic clustering that takes place. So 70 years of this bullshit and 35 of NAFTA. And guess what? We have individuals that are in their 20s that are underemployed and that cannot have a better way of life. They're literally postponing 10, 15 years before they have families or, build equity for their livelihood. That was not the case for the Gen Xers. That was not the case for the baby boomers. But Fareed thinks that the economy is just wonderful for everybody because globalization is so great. You know what it is? You have a lot of people that are coming into the United States now legally, all right, that have not put the sweat into making the country as prosperous as it is. So they have no skin in the game. They don't know. It's not in their ethos. It's not in their genetics. It's not in their emotional makeup, because all they know is going from one shithole in the world and coming to America. But most of them didn't fight for the country, especially if they immigrated, let's say in the 1980s or the 1970s, even the 60s. Do you think these people that immigrated to the United States in the 1960s, if any of them in their family actually served their country, served the United States military? Most likely not. Most likely not. In some cases, yes, but most likely not. So they don't have any skin in the game. It's not part of their fiber, of their being. So it's easy to just, globalization's so great. Jack Welch with the MBA, running GE. He's dead now, but running GE. It's all about globalization. Maximizing shareholder value. Meanwhile, what was happening in the last 35 years is your job was being gutted. So we're supposed to believe what Dr. Fareed Zakaria? I mean, you know, he did go to Harvard. You would think he knows some statistics. Is pontificating that the younger generation that's coming out of college and coming out of high school has a prosperous future? No.
Of his supporters, even Howard Lutnick used to say. But increasingly, it feels like Trump really wants these tariffs. It's not just leverage.
I think it's more than that.
He really wants these tariffs. He really wants these tariffs because he's just he's just bombastic and he's just a bull, you know, he's a wrecking ball in everything he does. He's just a bull in the china shop. He's just a bull in the globalization china shop.
Treadmill again. I need to drop my belly, man.
Yeah, no, that's total.
All right, hold on. I gotta pause it. So you know, Trump's just a wrecking ball in the globalist china shop. No, what it is we actually have a person that is tired of seeing the country being sold out from under us. There is no way that someone can justify that the statement that the newer generation, the younger generation that's coming online with jobs, coming out of academia or out of high school, and that their life is better than, let's say, the Gen X or Gen X or even baby boomers when they were of the same age. No way, not even close. Not even close. Not even close. The job opportunities, the ability to do family creation, the ability for home affordability, it's not there for this younger generation. And it's because of the economic clustering that was gutted because of globalization. So Trump is saying, well, wait a minute, why is this thing happening with globalization? Oh, you have countries that are making goods coming to the United States, but the United States can't manufacture goods and sell them to those countries because those countries have high tariffs. But you got people on CNN CIA wanting to demonize Trump. Because what is Trump? Trump is a wrecking ball for globalization. Globalization has fucked America. It's made people wealthy, but not the middle class.
I think he is quite sincere in wanting to transform the U.S. economy over the next 4 years into a much more manufacturing-based economy, and he sees tariffs as his primary tool to do so. Now, of course, increasing manufacturing in the United States is a goal that many presidents have had, including President Biden. But President Biden used issues like tools like industrial policy as well. And here, I think Trump is...
Biden was brain dead.
Believes that by putting up a wall of tariffs, he will force companies to move their production and move their supply chains to the
And that's
United
exactly
States.
what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. Because if the sales start to go down, they will do whatever it takes to make sure that they are on the winning side to make sales for their products. And if that means making them in the United States, then so be it. You know, the middle class, they need to wake up. They have super power against GM and Ford. Superpower. All you got to do is not buy the brand new cars. If you need a new car, you absolutely can't wait 2 years, buy used. And I guarantee you that GM and Ford will do whatever it takes to rebuild in the United States only. Because the shareholders are going to lose so much money that the board is going to be there's going to be so much pressure on them to bring back the manufacturing. Just like there was so much pressure when NAFTA came online to actually ship the jobs. because you had analysts from Wall Street. This is back in the 90s. You had analysts in the 90s forcing the issue to maximize the share price, to reduce the cost of manufacturing and move them to Canada and to Mexico. And so they did it. And it took years to build up this supply chain. Well, you can unravel it the same way. Stop buying their products. Only buy used. And when you do that, GM and Ford will literally be forced by their board, by the analysts on Wall Street, to move manufacturing back. And Trump is a very street smart individual. I don't think Trump is an intellectual. Trump is not an intellectual, not even close. But he's not dumb. You can be smart and not an intellectual. You could be an intellectual and not smart. I don't think that Trump has read more than 5 books in the last 5 years, cover to cover. He's not an intellectual. He never will be. But what he is street savvy. He's that New York street savvy business guy. All right? He's smart, not intellectual though. And what he knows is that you can press the pressure points of your opponent, of your competitor, to force them to capitulate. And that's what he's doing with tariffs. Now let's see what the intellectuals from the Boss Wash corridor have to say. Because everything that comes out of CIA, must be right.
Cool. What do you think the likely result of all this is going to be? Assume again that there is some widespread application of tariffs. I think that's a reasonable assumption.
Look, you can't overrule the laws of economics with an executive order any more than you can overrule the laws of gravity. If you raise the prices on something, if you impose a tax, which is what a tariff is, on a product, it's going to be more expensive and people will buy less of it. And when you combine that,
they'll buy less of that product and go to a substitute if it's possible. But if they buy less of that product, it's going to force that maker to bring the manufacturing back to the United States, and then their product will be made. Now, there is a transition period. It takes time to build up that manufacturing, but also there's going to be elevated prices in some markets where there aren't substitutes. Okay, but like I said, with cars, the big one is cars with Canada. The auto parts that are being shipped into the United States. That's the big one. All right. And I know this for a fact. All right, because I've spent a lot of time in automotive. If you buy used, it will force the issue of GM and Ford to move the manufacturing faster to the United States and bring down their prices. Now let's see if this clown has anything to say. This is the first time I've seen this video. Almost all these videos that I play are just off the cuff. But let's see if he comes even close to the insight that I just provided.
With what we're seeing in the decline of consumer investor confidence, you could well see a slowing of the economy more generally and more expensive products for consumers. This administration has said that consumer welfare is not necessarily their top priority. I think the Secretary of Treasury said cheap consumer products is not the American dream. That's a legitimate point to have.
See, a lot of people are making this, especially the ones that are demonizing Trump's policy with the tariffs. Oh, it's bad for the consumers. It's bad for the consumers. You don't realize that a big part of the middle class needs economic clustering and manufacturing too. That's good for the middle class. So it's not just consumer. Do you want to be just a consumer? Because if you're just a consumer, you're a slave. But if you're a producer, you have more opportunity. And that's what we saw with the Gen Xers, and that's what we saw with the baby boomers. But they just want you to be a consumer. Oh, this is going to raise your prices. They don't want to tell you that it's actually going to bring old-time manufacturing and economic clustering and opportunity and family creation and owning property and building equity in your life. No, they don't want to tell you that.
The question is, how much are the American people willing to pay in terms of higher prices for everything that they buy?
Consumer.
$2,000 to $15,000 more per car in order to try and encourage this kind of production in the United States. And will it work?
Why not buy used? You can buy used, or just not buy. You can just hold off and not buy for another 2 years. Meanwhile, they bring the manufacturing back and the tariffs are no longer there. And the prices are lower.
And just on that, Fareed, I think the president's style of putting tariffs on and taking tariffs off, the uncertainty around that has actually led companies to say, we're just going to wait and see how this all pans out, because these are very expensive decisions that take years and years. One thing that will be very interesting to see is that under globalization, the benefits of globalization were widely spread. Cheaper consumer products for Americans. It's sort of invisible, but the cost of
cheaper consumer products. Globalization, cheaper consumer products, because you're a consumer. You're not a producer anymore, you're a consumer. You've imported deflation because of the labor arbitrage. Meanwhile, your government, the United States government, is spending more money than it has and has to issue bonds and go into further debt. You know why? Because we don't make anything. So we buy from someone else because we don't make anything. We're importing deflation because of labor arbitrage, and they get American dollars. China gets American dollars, and China has to use those American dollars. And so they buy the debt that's being issued by the US government to finance programs that we really can't afford. And we're issuing and sending even more money as interest payments to the ones that are holding those bonds. Now, if you make stuff and you're selling it, then you can have more economic viability and you will have a better debt to GDP ratio. Now, if our GDP is stagnant or growing slowly because of economic clustering has been destroyed because of globalization, and the debt keeps on going up, you're going to have a high debt to GDP ratio. But if you have better economic clustering, if you bring back the jobs, and you have even just stabilized the amount of spending by the government, and your GDP is up, your debt to GDP ratio is down. That's a good thing.
Were acutely felt by those industries that felt that competition, like steel. Here, the president's flipping this on his head. So the cost of his approach will be felt by everybody, and the benefits may be felt by only a small number of workers in a small number of sectors. And it'll be interesting to see politically how that pans out over the next few years, while it takes years for companies to re-establish supply chains.
No, what it is a short term, there's going to be pain. Long term, there's going to be economic clustering and opportunity for all. That's what's going to happen.
Mike, I only have 30 seconds left, but I do have to ask you, what about Canada? Do you even understand what the ask is for Canada? Because the Canadians, there isn't a lot of drugs coming through from the north.
Come on, Fareed, you know this. They have high tariffs to protect their industries so we can't sell our goods into Canada. That's why. Come on.
Okay. I think Canadians are puzzled as to what exactly are they being asked. They signed a big trade deal with the last Trump administration, which he said was the best trade deal ever.
The Canadians are bewildered and are trying to figure out what they need to do to get out of the doghouse. There are long-standing trade issues here that even Canadians recognize should be dealt with. Things like their closed dairy market, their lumber market, which is very much, it goes back 200 years. We have a conflict with Canada over lumber, and these could be useful things to get fixed during these negotiations.
All right. Mike Froman, pleasure to have you on to sort this out for us. Thank you.
True vision starts at the top.
I love Tesla. Which one did you buy? Which one did you buy?
Which car are you going to buy?
The one I like is that one. How does this work? I want that same color.
President Trump joked about buying a Tesla. Meanwhile, can you afford a new car? On Sunday, President Trump told NBC News in a phone interview that he, quote, couldn't care less if his auto tariffs cause prices to rise because people will buy more American-made cars. Some of the president's supporters claim his tariff
and
threats
people
are
don't want to understand that it's about an economic clustering. You're going to have more mom and pop shops. You're going to have more people that start businesses. There's going to be more opportunity for the youth. It's about economic clustering, CIA.
than a negotiating ploy.
I feel like in some ways in the economy, this is kind of like a kitchen remodel or a bath remodel. There's a bit of a mess at the beginning, but everybody has a long-term look of where we're headed. It's going to be noisy for a little while, but we all know where we're headed, trying to reduce the prices for Americans and increase jobs.
Okay, bringing the group chat back. Look at your eyebrows. Kitchen remodel. Do you buy it? Because by the way, if anyone's remodeled their kitchen, I haven't, but I have friends who have, and they're still traumatized. Okay, it's a lot of pain.
Exactly. It feels more like taking your old house and then just ripping it all the way down to the studs and rebuilding it and trying to do that. And
So
doing
then
it
what do you make
with
of
less
the way
money.
Langford was explaining it? 'Cause, like, what is that messaging?
I think that messaging is, he's like blinking in Morse code. Please do not actually do these tariffs. I think there's a lot of
Big Pharma does not care about you. They really don't care about anybody but their bottom line, which is why we are completely stoked.
Here's a video of a woman using the Wi-Fi detector to discover the hidden camera in what appears to be her Airbnb. And
sort of in similar terms. And, I went back in history to look at what other times have we seen this magnitude of a deceleration in growth year over year. And I found very few examples. And the closest match that I was able to find was 2016. If you look at how the stock market has reacted to a hit of about 1 percentage point year over year in economic growth, that points to a sell-off of as much as 14%. We are down 10% from the highs. So that tells me that we've already incorporated a lot of the expected economic pain. Is there further downside? Of course there is, even with the baseline assumptions. But if we go onto the more aggressive scenarios, the downside goes, a lot lower.
Do you feel like tariff concerns have increased while monetary policy concerns have remained fairly low? We do have Goldman economists now seeing a Fed cut in July, September, and November versus bets on just 2 cuts earlier this year.
Yeah, well, I think the market is sort of, obviously we're not talking about the Powell put or the Fed put anymore, but I think the latest Fed meeting has told us that this Fed retains or has a more sort of dovish stance now. I mean, we've heard, even with the SEP, right, they marked up their inflation expectations, marked down growth, and told us that they're still going to cut twice this year. And, they're minimalizing the signal from weaker consumer sentiment and all of that, which also signals that should inflation come in a little bit better than expected, or should growth deteriorate firmly from here, the Fed will act.
Tatiana, thank you so much. We appreciate getting a few minutes of your time. Tatiana Derrier, strategist for Markets Live on Bloomberg News. We appreciate getting a few minutes of her time. The MTA, the New York City Metropolitan Transit Authority, faces a funding deadline on March 31st, where the U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is threatening to withhold federal funding unless the MTA addresses crime on the transit system, including assaults, fare evasion, and subway-related criminal activity. I've been riding the New York City subway for 45 years. Nothing has changed, with one exception. It's now fully air-conditioned. The same crazy people that you see today, they were there in 1978. the same grime and all that. That's better.
Well, no. I have to correct you. Remember the graffiti on the subways? It was like riding on it was a rolling fun house on wheels.
Well, I hear all these people bash the subway system. They don't ride it every day.
Sorry, for some reason, Rumble shut down, and then the feed to YouTube wasn't working, so I had to set up a new live stream through Rumble. I don't know why that happened, but thank you for joining again. My name's Dr. Paul Cottrell, if you just joined. We're doing a live stream on Rumble, on my website, and also on YouTube, and simulcast on X Spaces. If you would like to ask a question on X Spaces, please do. Let me just plug some supplements here. I apologize for the interruption because of the shutdown from Rumble. That's the first time that's happened. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the magnesium and zinc to boost up your immune system. And also couple it with the vitamin C. You can take it separately, but it works better if you take them together. Vitamin C plus the magnesium. Vitamin C is an antioxidant, but also it's going to help to improve your immune system and your skin. So take them daily together. This is a great stack. If you buy $150 worth of product on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, you will get a free gift until supplies last. So please go to my store, use discount 5 and you get $5 off. So please go to my store, get the magnesium and zinc and the vitamin C. Stock up to boost up your health and your wellness and your immune system. Another great stack, all right, that I have is the multivitamin and the olive leaf extract. So with the multivitamin, you get a nice foundation of vitamins. Now with vitamins and minerals, they are cofactors for enzymatic activity. This is an easy to digest multivitamin. You should be taking this every day. Drink it with filtered water. And what is going to happen is that you'll have the concentrations that you need for the proper enzymatic activity. So your cells perform the way they should. And then taking the olive leaf extract is a dual purpose. It's going to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular health. Olive leaf extract brings down inflammation. So by taking the stack, you're taking the multivitamins that you need as a base, as a good foundation. You're bringing down inflammation. And olive leaf extract also helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. So it's helping with your lipid profile. By bringing down inflammation, it's going to help with your immune system. By bringing down your inflammation at the vascular level, it's going to help with your cardiovascular health. And by bringing down LDL and increasing your HDL levels, you're improving your total cholesterol. And that's by bringing down that LDL, less LDL will oxidize, and therefore you have less buildup of plaque. So taking olive leaf extract every day is a great multi-purpose supplement that you should be doing every day, but stack it with the multivitamin to get the base multivitamins that you need for proper enzymatic activity. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. This multivitamin is easy to digest. Again, if you purchase $150 worth of product, you get a free gift. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off.
Administration talking about how they're going to try to stop the congestion pricing. Cars are still paying, trucks are still paying. NTA is saying, look, we're not turning off the cameras unless a court tells us to do so.
Michelle, great stuff. Thank you very much. Appreciate that reporting. Michelle Caskey, reporter for Bloomberg News here. Again, the subway's got its drawbacks, but I'm telling you, you've got 8 million people living on this rock. You want to get from point A to point B. The most efficient, cost-efficient way to do it is the subway. I'll go to my grade saying that, betting that. S&P 500 down 41 points. The NASDAQ off 316 points. That's 1 point.
All right, let's go to live now.
There's also threatened a 10% tariff on Venezuelan and Canadian oil, which is estimated to raise our gas prices by 20 cents a gallon. The administration has already imposed tariffs on aluminum and steel and other building materials, certain goods from Canada, like lumber and produce, all goods from China. These new tariffs will include a 25% new tariff on our closest trading partners, Canada and Mexico. Canada's already announced reciprocal 25% tariffs of their own on U.S. goods. New Jersey sells more goods to Canada than its next three largest foreign markets combined, totaling $8.4 billion in exports annually, all of which are under threat. Mexico is our largest food supplier, making up nearly 2/3 of U.S. vegetable imports, about half of U.S. fruit and tree nut imports in 2021. Egg prices are already up 53% from where they were a year ago. 85% of fertilizers imported from Canada. So tariffs will cost Jersey families, our small businesses, and our farmers here in New Jersey, all of which billions of dollars across the country, with an expected drop in exports as high as 10%, and the cost of fertilizer going up. My point is, all of these things, and I'm a huge supporter of manufacturing, and we want to keep adding more manufacturing in New Jersey, right? And I think the more we invest, the better. It's why I fought so hard for the CHIPS bill and help get it done. But the bottom line is you need a plan and a strategy. And what I worry about is by imposing these cross-the-board tariffs on our businesses that are going to affect our businesses and our families and our pocketbooks just across the board, including on our allies and our key trading partners, you're going to see it whack Jersey families hard in their pocketbooks. These tariffs will mark the largest tax hikes on our families in a generation and will include reciprocal tariffs on all nations, as I said. Expected to cost our country, according to economists, 600,000 jobs, including jobs right here in Jersey. And given current projections, investment bank Goldman Sachs now estimates the economy will grow an annual rate of just 0.6%, down from expected GDP growth of 2.4% at the end of last year. So it's going to cost our growth, our economy, and our families. It will affect the median price, according to experts, of homes by at least $21,000, according to experts. So where I'm confused about all this is I thought this administration, this president, wanted to create jobs and make life more affordable for our families. This will do just the opposite. It will raise prices. These tariffs will raise prices. These tariffs will cost us jobs, and it will hurt our small businesses up and down streets like this one. 64% of Americans reportedly agree that they're worried this administration is not doing anything to get prices lower. That's what I'm worried about. It's an insane attack on affordability for our country. The Federal Reserve last week released new data predicting lower growth and higher inflation this year in what Fed Chairman Powell has called, quote, tariff inflation. In fact, one survey said the economy now has a 13% higher chance of recession because of these tariffs that are looming over us right now. And over the weekend, when asked about the impact of auto prices on wallets of hardworking families, the president said, and I quote, he, quote, couldn't care less. Well, I do care. We care. It's why we're here today. Because I care what's going to happen to our families here in Jersey, to their pocketbooks, to their wallets, to our small business in towns like this.
Short-term relief is only selling the future generation down the river. And the Democratic Party knows a lot about selling people down the river, don't they?
None of this makes any sense to me. It only raises costs across the board. And it's just a new tax on Jersey families of at least $2,000 a year, again, if not more. As the former head of NJMEP said of sweeping tariffs during the first Trump administration, he said, quote, workers get laid off, the prices go up, and companies move. That's exactly what happened over the years since then. The craziest part is that President Trump is imposing all these tariffs without congressional approval, without oversight, under the guise of a national emergency. When it comes to tariffs, we need a targeted approach that doesn't put a bullseye on our own economy. And I don't get the strategy. It's one thing to target our adversaries like Iran and China with new tariffs, but it's another to go after our key allies and key trading partners who rely on us for goods and who we rely on for certain things and who don't manufacture certain things here right now. We know they'll have a huge impact.
He hasn't said one thing about reciprocal trade. The tariffs are lopsided, and it started from the Canadians. The Canadians have more tariffs on our goods than we do on theirs. So Trump's just saying, okay, we're going to start using the same strategy you are doing. So is he supporting unfair trade practices by Canada? That seems like what this representative from New Jersey is saying. But he's a Democrat and an idiot.
Americans' wallets. And in typical Trump fashion, there's no plan. It's all chaos. And chaos breeds uncertainty and higher prices and fear. So what most presidents have always done is they make the pitch to the American people and a Congress, which is in charge of trade. Constitution puts Congress in charge of trade, right? But in this case, it's all under the guise of a national emergency. I'd like to really understand how this is going to work, how this is going to affect our families, what the strategy is, how we're going to rebuild our manufacturing base and create more jobs, which I support, and over what time. But in the meantime, what are we going to do for our families who are going to face higher costs? Massive turbulence and uncertainty will wreak havoc on our economy and drive up prices, hurt people's 401ks and savings, and that's unacceptable. So I'm announcing today new action to help ensure.
Remember what I said. Remember what I said. When you have representatives and the mainstream media trying to scare the middle class, it's because the transnational capitalists have a lot to lose under this tariff regime that Trump is instituting. It's not about the middle class. They're trying to protect the transnational capitalists, the globalists, the multinational corporation. That's who this representative is protecting. He doesn't give a flying fuck about the middle class.
In a strategic and responsible way, not targeting the success of our families, not targeting our key allies. First, I'm introducing the Reclaiming Congressional Trade Authority Act to require the president to submit a clear strategy to Congress to justify imposing tariffs for emergency purposes. As I said, Congress has the constitutional responsibility to regulate foreign trade, so the bottom line is the president should go to Congress and lay out his plan to Congress and to the American people, and not claim a national emergency by imposing tariffs on our key trading partners that will end up in higher costs for our families. The president wants to impose these sweeping tariffs that will impact millions of Americans. He has to actually have a good justification for doing it. And I'll fight tooth and nail to ensure hardworking families don't pay the price for this reckless action. Second, the president can't use vague threats of national security to endanger the financial security of New Jersey's families. Canada is not our enemy. I'm helping introduce the Prevent Tariff Abuse Act, which clarifies current law to make it explicitly clear that the president can't just impose tariffs under the guise of national security and a national emergency without actually proving that he needs it to Congress. We should be responding to hostile foreign adversaries, not crushing our families and small businesses, and not going after our key allies. I joined 46 of my colleagues in a letter calling on the president to reconsider the 25% tariff on imported building materials. Like that. Like steel. Those are imported building materials often. Right there. Driving by us. So I've joined 46 of my colleagues in a letter calling on President Trump to reconsider the 25% tariff on imported.
Why the hell aren't we making our own steel? Representative from New Jersey.
Materials from Canada and Mexico. Because by the way, you know what that means when you impose 25%? It actually means prices of housing go way up. The cost of materials go way up. The cost of wood goes way up and steel goes way up. That affects the construction of homes and repairs of homes. I joined Representative Rutherford in reintroducing the bipartisan Bicameral Helper Act to help lower the barriers to home ownership for those who devote their lives and careers to service. Our cops, our paramedics, our firefighters, and teachers. These proposed tariffs will do just the opposite and make it harder for those who protect our homes to own one of their own homes. Finally, any proposed tariff must be targeted, not applied broadly, without consideration for the nuances and impact on American jobs, including jobs here in New Jersey and families here in New Jersey. So I'm announcing a new online portal, where New Jersey families can go to this new online portal, and small businesses can go there and make their voices heard on how these tariffs will hurt them or are already hurting them. I will take these comments and send them to the White House and to the U.S. Trade Representative. And if they're smart, they'll listen to our family.
When it comes to economy, you got to look at the short term and you got to look at the long term. But of course, he's only focused on the short term.
Here in Jersey and to our small businesses here in Westwood and across our state. This comment portal will be available starting later this week at gottheimer.house.gov/tariff.
All right.
right, I want to switch over to Fox Business here, and this is O'Leary complaining about Canada.
Gives you the power of AI to build the website you need with full business functionality, and it is.
Working on TikTok, we have a lot of potential buyers. There's tremendous interest in TikTok. The decision's going to be my decision, as you know, through Congress. They've given me the power to make the decision. We have a great team of people essentially taking bids. We have a lot of people that want to buy TikTok. We're dealing with China also on it because they may have something to do with it. And we'll see how that goes. Is the deal clear? Is the deadline? Well, there'll be a deal with TikTok.
President Trump speaking with reporters yesterday on Air Force One about the Saturday deadline for TikTok to divest its U.S. operations or face a ban in the U.S. The president floating the idea to reduce Chinese tariffs to push Beijing toward a deal, signaling a possible extension to that deadline as well. Joining me right now is O'Leary Ventures Chairman Kevin O'Leary. And Kevin, you have offered to buy the app yourself. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Where are you on this bid? Have you heard a response?
Well, the president's right. There's a lot of interest. Frank McCourt and I put this in a with McCourt and I is we are preparing for the eventuality, looking at the law and talking. I'm in Washington right now, Maria. I mean, if you want to find out the status of lawmakers' views on TikTok, you just have to go to Cafe Milano and hang out there for an hour and a half, and you're going to get an earful from everybody of their opinion. And so at the end of which I did last night, there's a lot of lawmakers that want to see this asset completely disentangled from the Chinese code and ByteDance completely. So the interpretation of what the law says is key. Moving over that, as you're well aware, is $5,000 a day per user penalty. There is no company in the S&P 500 that could last more than 11 days without being bankrupt with that penalty. So we're trying to balance all this out. My attitude is, and I can speak for Frank on this one, we're here to help. Look, we'll work a deal any way we can, and if we're told we cannot use the source code, or ByteDance can't be an owner, or whatever Trump and Xi decide, we're going to work with that.
But how do you ensure that if you don't have the source code, if you don't have a ByteDance, that you are going to have the same product, but you don't have the Chinese surveillance, propaganda, and everything else that comes with TikTok?
Well, you have to write it from scratch, and that's been done before. You got to remember, Microsoft rewrote Skype from scratch. There's AI models now that can assist you to do that. Look at Instagram Reels. It's getting better every week. These models learn. I think you can actually start from scratch if you had to, and keep all of the 7 million businesses that are using TikTok afloat, which is really my motivation, Maria. I'm an advocate for small business. We use this product every single day. It's 60% of our digital spend. Nobody wants it turned off. Whatever it takes, we'll figure it out. That's my whole point. We got to work with Oracle. They got the servers right now. There's enough elements in place, enough people interested, a syndicate large enough to work this out. We just have to find out what she wants to do. And Trump knows that, and he's doing everything he can to get him to the table right now. Now, the other alternative, which nobody wants, is what happened in India in 2020. She just shut it off. That's not a good outcome for anybody. But you got to remember, in the context of ByteDance globally, this asset's only about 9% of the value. So the shareholders there, you know, if that happens to them, okay, it's a loss of $20, $30 billion. I get it, but it's not the end of the free world for them.
President Trump, meanwhile, spoke with the new Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, last week. I want to get your take on this. Kevin, he posted about the meeting. He said it was an extremely productive call. We agree on many things, and we'll be meeting immediately after Canada's upcoming election to work on elements of politics, business, and all other factors that will end up being great for both the United States of America and for Canada. The call, of course, came after Carney bashed Trump and his tariffs earlier in the day. Watch this.
We will fight the U.S. tariffs with retaliatory trade actions of our own that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impacts here in Canada. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over.
What do you think, Kevin? It certainly feels like Canada and the U.S.'s relationship has changed in a big way. We did a story earlier in the show about how Canadians are selling real estate in Florida right now.
At NYU Langone Health, a single electronic health record gives you access to all of your doctors, lab results, images, prescriptions, and visits.
The anti-U.S. rhetoric is being stirred up by Carney because his party devastated the country over the last 10 years. And the only way he can stay in power is to convince people he's the solution against Trump. So the rhetoric has never been hotter. And of course, he's 5 weeks away from an election. So he'll stir the pot any way he can. But let's not forget where Carney came from. He is a global elitist. He's a supporter of carbon taxes. He said he'll remove them from consumers, but he's going to double down on business in Canada. And that decimated. You got to remember, Canada actually only grew under the Liberal Party 1.4% in 10 years. The economy's wiped out. One of the reasons Canadians can't go to Florida is his party wiped out the value of the dollar, down 41%. Canadians can't afford to go to Disneyland anymore. So Carney's doing it the very best he can to say, look, I will save you against Trump. And he throws the rhetoric out every day against him, a man named DrPaulCottrell, who's also trying to be elected as a conservative. They're both in a crazy rhetoric, an anti-American rhetoric, that will go away the minute this election's over. He will get on a plane, whoever wins, fly to Washington, and start working on what I call NAFTA 3, which is the right thing to do. I might add that Senator Kennedy of Louisiana gave an eloquent presentation about why tariffs between Canada and the United States should be zero. I listened to it. It made a whole lot of sense to me, and I think it'll make a lot of sense to Canadian people as well as soon as this election is over. Will Carney win? Who knows? But he's backtracked like crazy on all the liberal parties. Whether people trust him or not will be the determination, because he certainly was he advised Trudeau for the last 5 years. And so the idiot king is gone, but is Carney any better? Nobody knows yet.
Well, let me get your take before we go, Kevin, on these tariffs. The president's reciprocal tariffs will kick in on Wednesday at midnight. What are you expecting? Obviously, markets are, hyper nervous about this, and we're seeing some companies unable to give us a real guidance for the 2025 calendar year because they don't know what it's going to cost them. How do you think this lands?
I take the positive view, Maria. I believe this is the beginning of negotiations. 17 states in America, their largest trading partner is Canada. 75% of Canadian output is purchased by Americans. It would be stupid for these two countries to go to war together, not when they've been married for over 100 years. This is a tiff. It's a marriage, and they're having a little tiff. That's what I say. So as soon as this election's over, which is unfortunate for the Canadian people right now, the negotiations will begin. We should have no tariffs on the 49th parallel. It should be an open market and the best companies win. That's combining the two economies to everybody's benefit. That would be a behemoth that China could never catch up with.
All right, we'll be watching. We'll see. You think it's all?
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I'm going to be talking about a stack here that's really important for your bone health and your cardiovascular health. Take the D3 and the K2 MK7 molecule, take them together, and when you take in calcium, either through a supplement or through drinking milk, do resistance training and you're going to build more bone density. Also, K2 and D3 are really important for your cardiovascular health. You'll slowly pull out that calcium depositing around plaque formation and also diminish new calcium depositing around plaque. So take the D3 and the K2 together, take it with also the multivitamin or the vitamin
C and vitamin C and magnesium, or the magnesium and zinc. Taking magnesium with the D3 and the K2 and K7 molecule is more beneficial for you. Now, for the ones that didn't know that. Now, the cardiovascular stack can be improved further by taking the nattokinase. It'll break up clots because it's fibrinolytic, but it also will help with your lipid profile. It'll lower LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. So nattokinase, stack it with the D3 and the K2, help with your cardiovascular health. Take the D3 and the K2, resistance train, taking calcium, and you'll build more bone density. And taking the supplements that I have that have magnesium in it will help with also the D3 and the K2. But you should be taking a multivitamin as a base anyways. So take that stack. If you spend $150 or more on my store, you get a free gift until supplies last. I'm not going to tell you what the gift is, but please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right. Let's go to Carvel, because Carvel is so accurate with Trump. Not. And Carvel's just imploding.
Do this 7 minutes a day until May 1st. We start on Monday, March 31st. In a week, you'll feel better. In 2 weeks.
So will the recent Signalgate scandal trigger a massive downfall for the Trump administration? Legendary Democratic strategist James Carville made this bold prediction just a month ago.
I believe that this administration, in less than 30 days, in the midst of a massive collapse, and particularly a collapse in public opinion.
He recently advised Democrats in a New York Times op-ed to embark on the most daring political maneuver in the history of our country: roll over and play dead, allow the Republicans to crumble beneath their own weight, and make the American people miss us. Joining me now is the Raging Cajun. He's a veteran political consultant, co-host of the Politics War Room podcast, and the man behind Bill Clinton's 1992 campaign victory. So a month ago, here's the full quote of what you wrote, James, in the Times. At this rate, the honeymoon, the Trump honeymoon, will be over, best case, by Memorial Day, but more likely in the next 30 days. And in November of 2025, we start turning the tide with what will be remembered as one of the most important elections in recent years, the Virginia governor's race. You know that we extended this invitation to you a month ago when you first wrote those words, because we thought, what will Carville say when that deadline comes? What are you thinking?
Well, what tense are we in? Is it collapsing or has it collapsed? That's the only argument to have. And I was wrong. I said Memorial Day is before April Fool's Day, which the Trump administration should make a national holiday because it so accurately represents who they are. So I'm not really, we're not arguing. We look at what's happening in the markets. We look at what happened on Signalgate. We look at what's happening all around us, treating measles with apricot pits or something like that. I think the thing is collapsed, but I'll go to you. Let's take the middle ground here and say it's collapsing, and I'll meet you halfway. But that's about
so
all.
Harry Enton, I really respect his opinion. He crunches numbers for us here at CNN, and he spoke to Trump and right track, wrong track numbers. Let's roll the clip and then have James respond. Go ahead.
Sure. All we talk about is how unpopular Donald Trump is. But in reality, he's basically more popular than he was at any point in term number one, and more popular than he was when he won election back in November of 2024.
I mean, James, to have these numbers and be any other new president, newly inaugurated president, you'd be regarded as a disaster. But for him, doesn't Harry have a point? His base is holding, and as compared to his other numbers, he's doing quite well.
Well, he's a mathematical genius. He knows algorithms. He knows regression analysis. He can look at things. Myself, I'm a humble political consultant. What I look at is the election returns. Yeah, voters voted. If you notice, Trump couldn't put Stefanik as UN ambassador because they were scared they were going to lose a district that Trump carried by 20. I'm going to read the election returns in Wisconsin on Tuesday night. I'm not going to do a regression analysis or anything or complicated mathematical formula. So I guess what it comes down to, I'm just too dumb because I'm a guy that believes that winning an election is the most important thing there is in the United States.
When you wrote in the Times and you spoke of rolling over and playing dead, you said, allow the Republicans to crumble beneath their own weight and make the American people miss us. But if the approval rating of the Democratic Party is at 29%, according to CNN's data, who's missing Democrats right now? They might be upset with Trump, but who's really missing the Democrats?
Well, first of all, this is a glorious opportunity for the Democratic Party to redefine itself, to take this as what it is, and apparently some people in the news media are not. It's the greatest crisis we've had in the United States in the last 80 years. You understand what we're looking at? We're looking at the kind of end of the rule of law. We're looking at nincompoops and blockheads and buffoons running the country. And if Democrats, and again, I had no idea. I thought I'd have to wait longer for the imminent collapse. It happened even faster than I could imagine. So I don't know exactly what we're arguing about. They won't run in a plus 20 district. I don't think they're going to do that well in Wisconsin. Let's see what happens in Florida. But you got people that represent states and congressional districts that have a 15, 20 or more partisan lean to Democrats, and a kind of motor mouth caucus. You know, we'll get elected governor of Georgia, then I'll be impressed. Or there's my friend Andy Bitchute did get elected governor of Kentucky, then come back and see me. But
okay, still
think the party can redefine itself.
Still staying focused now on your side of the aisle. Here's what Governor Newsom said last night to Bill Maher. Roll it.
We just have to continue to talk to ourselves, or we're in the same damn echo chamber. These guys are crushing us. The Democratic brand is toxic right now. We had a high water mark 2 weeks ago, and that was a CNN poll at 29% favorability. It's dropped to the NBC poll down to 27%. It's one thing to make noise, but you also have to make sense.
He says the Democratic brand is toxic right now. What are Democrats doing to fill the vacuum or the void that Trump is leaving open?
Well, let's see how toxic it is in Wisconsin, all right? I mean, the toxicity is relatively opposed. The second thing is, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about the party rating in March of an odd number year. Let's see what happens in Virginia. Let's see what happens when we have these really, really talented people run for president. This whole thing is, in the Democrats, they have 27, what they going to do? They have a chance to redefine themselves, to talk about issues that matter to people, and get away from this idiocy, this plus 25 Democratic identity politics, which hurt us more than anything. But I think we're away from that. And I think you see some real talent. But it doesn't matter what the party rating is. What matters are elections. I cannot drive that point home enough. There did a movie about me, and I love the title, Winning is Everything, Stupid. And the reason people don't like the Democrats is we didn't win. And until we win, I'm not going to like the Democrats.
Final comment. This comes from a critique to your Times op-ed of a month ago, the Muhammad Ali, the rope-a-dope strategy. Yep. Put this on the screen. Mr. Carville makes some very good points today. However, looking down the road, how can we undo all the damage to our country, our citizens, our allies inflicted by their actions? It most likely will take decades to reverse this damage, reserve this damage, but I'm correcting it for them. In the past, we could count on the judicial branch to protect us. Now we are in Never Land. It's just so bizarre. This person says these are no times for rope-a-dope strategy. You get the final word.
Well, I think he's a very intelligent person, and I don't know how long it'll take us to unring this bell, because that's what we have to do. But again, if we're smart, and we Muhammad Ali, and we knock him out in the 7th round, I'll be plenty happy enough with that. I'm just calling on Democrats to be strategic, not to be emotional, to understand what the dynamics are. That if you look at this whole Signalgate thing, you think it's going to be over? You think people that are stupid are going to stop being stupid? You think people that are buffoons are going to stop being buffoons? No, they're going to keep doing that. And you're looking at Stephen Miller running the foreign policy and defense policy of the United States. Take a look at that guy. Go look him up. Look at a picture of him and tell me, does this guy really, you really want him running the show? Is that where you are?
I'd love to get him on this program. Yeah, I want him on this program on a split screen with you, and let's have that conversation together. I have to run.
All right, Michael.
We'll do this again in 30 more days. Thank you, sir. Checking in now on your social media comments. What else has come in during the course of the program? Republicans and Trump are dismantling our government, but leave it.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver gel. I have two types, one in the tube form or one in the quick dispenser. Have some at home or at work. Really important. You never know when you need it. It'll help to heal a wound, a cut, an abrasion, a minor burn. You can apply it on your skin daily as a daily skin routine. You can apply it on your skin after you shave. Women, if you shave your legs, apply it after you're shaving to reduce the razor burn. Guys, after shaving your face, apply it on your face and it will soothe your skin. Also, if you're not feeling well or people around you aren't feeling well, because it's the season, guess what? Put it on your hands, put it around your mouth, around your nose, around your eyes, around your ears, lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours. It's a dual purpose product. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the structural nanosilver gel. And if you purchase $150 worth of items, you will get a free gift until supplies last. So use discount 5 and you will get $5 off any order. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and again, purchase $150 worth of items and you will get a free gift.
Okay, let's take a look at Al Jazeera talking about Trump's administration.
Yeah. Now, in China, the mainland markets did not fall by as much. They fell by just under 1%, but that is a tighter, more government-regulated market. And the Chinese government has also pledged more government support and to stabilize stocks given the extended trade war with Donald Trump and the US this year. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
Still ahead on Al Jazeera. Flights have been cancelled, several services disrupted across Belgium. We'll explain what's behind the disruption.
All righty, let's take a look at the news here. All right, Trump teases retaliation against Putin for stalling Ukraine peace talks.
All right, here we go. Elon Musk is set to visit the CIA today at the request of John Radcliffe, the director, to discuss the government efficiency at the Bureau. Our next guest has met with Musk a number of times since retiring from the CIA. Fox News contributor, former CIA guy himself, Dan Hoffman. Dan, what could someone on the outside be working to do with the CIA on the inside, being that he's not an intelligence officer? How could they become more efficient?
Well, I think first and foremost, if there's one thing I learned at CIA is that the agency is really known for innovation. And really, Elon Musk is one of the most innovative entrepreneurs of his generation. And so I think you'll see some affinity there as they discuss their views of the world. It's a chance for CIA to brief up Elon Musk a little bit on how they work, and I'm sure there'll be some closed-door meetings. And also a chance to discuss Elon Musk's vision for bringing some efficiency to the U.S. government. Make no mistake, there'll be concerns on the part of CIA officers. They're never shy about raising them. Of course, it's not subjected to public scrutiny, but they'll be asking, I'm sure, about reductions in our foreign service and civil service and the impact that might have on government operations.
I mean, is there a lot of wasted money in the CIA? A lot of it's clandestine money that you guys need at your ready to pay bad guys to give up bad guys.
Look, the budget's incredibly small. Human intelligence is really cheap, especially when you compare that to the cost of like one missile that we might use to strike some Houthis, as we did recently. Also, there's very extensive oversight from the House and Senate intelligence committees. And so there really isn't an issue, at least from my experience of waste, fraud, and abuse at the CIA. But that said, it's a good thing to have this discussion, and the CIA is always looking to ensure that we use the government's money, the people's money, as efficiently as possible.
All right, let's use the rest of our time to talk about the stunning revelations over the weekend. Vladimir Putin went out of his way to question Vladimir Zelensky's credibility as president, as if he's not a legitimate president who doesn't win legitimate elections. And this really ticked off Trump. He spoke about it this weekend because now he's really mad at Russia. Watch.
So I wasn't happy with that, but I think he's going to be good. And I certainly wouldn't want to put secondary tariffs on Russia, but if they were put on, it would not be very good for them. Zelensky, by the way, I see he's trying to back out of the rare earth deal. And if he does that, he's got some problems, big problems. And now he's saying, well, I want to renegotiate the deal. He wants to be a member of NATO. Well, he was never going to be a member of NATO. He understands that. So,
first off, on the Vladimir Putin thing, he's getting ticked off because he's trying to extract the most concessions possible just to have a ceasefire in a war that he started, and that's ticking off Trump.
Yeah, and it should be. And look, there's a little bit of irony here that Vladimir Putin, the KGB operative in the Kremlin, is criticizing Zelensky for not holding elections when Putin, in fact, hasn't held a real election in Russia in over a quarter century. And look, I think what Putin wants to do is make it appear as if Zelensky's government isn't legitimate so that when down the road in the future, Russia breaks the next agreement, they can claim they did it because the government of Ukraine that signed the deal wasn't legitimate in the first place. And it's just a way for Russia to put more pressure on Ukraine. Look, for President Trump, it's extremely hard to bring an end to a conflict where neither side is won and neither side is too fatigued to carry on fighting. And that's, I think, what we're seeing right now. Putin's pressing maximalist demands, and we need to push back.
Real quick, are these secondary sanctions, for example, on India and China for buying Russia discounted oil, is that going to be effective? Will he feel that?
I never felt like when President Biden made those sorts of threats before the war that they would have deterred Putin, and they didn't. And in this case, look, Russia swiveled their economy to India and China. I just don't know that economic pressure at this point is going to do it. Russia is experiencing an unbalanced wartime economy, but I don't think that's going to stop Putin from carrying on with this brutal invasion of Ukraine and raining down hell on Ukrainian civilians. What might stop him is to continue to arm Ukraine and give them the munitions they need to carry on the fight. That might be the only answer, unfortunately. We'll see if we get there.
And if they want to keep fighting, they got to draft 18-year-olds. They just know they start at 27. They need fighters. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
So President Trump is set to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin again this week after accusing Russia of stalling on potential peace agreement with Ukraine.
He says he wants a regime change first in Ukraine. That's not going to happen. Maddie Rivera is live from the White House with the latest. Maddie.
Hi, guys. Good morning. President Trump used perhaps some of his strongest language yet against Russian President Vladimir Putin. This comes after Putin called for a transitional government to replace Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. The president then said he would consider imposing secondary tariffs on Russia if he believes it were at fault for not reaching a ceasefire in Ukraine.
Disappointed in a certain way, some of the things that were said over the last day or two having to do with Zelensky, because when he considers Zelensky not credible, he's supposed to be making a deal with him, whether you like him or you don't like him. So I wasn't happy with that. But I think he's going to be good. And I certainly wouldn't want to put secondary tariffs on Russia, but if they were put on, it would not be very good for them.
But the president is also criticizing Zelensky, who he says is now trying to reverse course on a rare minerals deal. This was that agreement that the president and Zelensky were supposed to sign last month before a blowout in the Oval Office. After that spat, Zelensky said he was ready to move ahead with the deal. Now the president is suggesting there may be more snags.
I think Zelensky, by the way, I see he's trying to back out of the rare earth deal. We made a deal on rare earth. And now he's saying, well, I want to renegotiate the deal. He wants to be a member of NATO. Well, he was never going to be a member of NATO. He understands that. So if he's looking to renegotiate the deal, he's got big problems.
The president also threatened consequences for Iran if a new nuclear deal is not reached. He tells NBC News it will be bombing the likes of which they have never seen before. There's a chance that if they don't make a deal, that I will do secondary tariffs on them like I did 4 years ago. Iran's president, though, is ruling out direct negotiations with the U.S., but indirect negotiations are still on the table. Lawrence Ainsley and Brad.
All right, thank you. He says if Russia is to blame, if you buy oil from Russia, if your country does, you can't do business in the United States, and there will be a 25 to 50% tariff on all oil. He says he's angry with
you found out he was pissed off.
Well, yeah, this was the moment that was going to be bound to happen. And I encourage people to have patience with the president as he set up the deal. Because at one point, Putin was going to overplay his hand, and which he did. And the moment after the president got Zelensky to the table, crafted this deal, it was a little give and take. Now Putin asked for something ridiculous, and of course the president's hammers comes right down.
Yeah, so he says what he'll do is anybody who buys oil, they're sustaining themselves by selling oil at a discount rate to India and China predominantly, not that they need to sell it to Iran, but to their allies. And a lot of people just taking it. South Africa, for example. So now he says, if you do business with them, just like he's going to do with Iran, now we're going to sanction you. That's going to get complicated because we're friendly with India, and they're friendly with Russia. But that's something that might be able to get their attention. Also, we got to arm up Ukraine, maybe give them additional arms and lengthen this process a little. Dan Hoffman weighed in.
There's a little bit of irony here that Vladimir Putin, the KGB operative in the Kremlin, is criticizing Zelensky for not holding elections when Putin, in fact, hasn't held a real election in Russia over a quarter century. And look, I think what Putin wants to do is make it appear as if Zelensky's government isn't legitimate, so that when down the road in the future Russia breaks the next agreement, they can claim they did it because the government of Ukraine that signed the deal wasn't legitimate in the first place. And it's just a way for Russia to put more pressure on Ukraine. Russia is experiencing an unbalanced wartime economy, but I don't think that's going to stop Putin from carrying on with this brutal invasion of Ukraine and raining down hell on Ukrainian civilians. What might stop him is to continue to arm Ukraine and give them the munitions they need to carry on the fight. That might be the only answer, unfortunately.
And also, Zelensky agreed to this minerals deal with the United States, and Donald Trump says now he wants to renegotiate, and he says if that happens, there's going to be a big problem because they've already worked that out.
Because it's two prongs. How you attack Putin is two ways. If he's not going to agree to peace, then you attack him two ways. You go after his economy. You got the sanctions as well, and you got the fact that they're selling the oil, so you take that portion. But you also, in response to that, have to give Ukraine the weapons as well. The president's made it very clear he wants peace, but if Putin, he got Zelensky to the table. If Putin is stepping away from the negotiating table, then here we go.
So essentially they said no oil, no energy infrastructure, and no Black Sea. That would be in confidence measures towards maybe a 30-day ceasefire. But they're already hitting them in the Black Sea, and over the weekend they were blowing up hospitals, the Russians were. How about this? Iran, we also put them on notice. You got 2 months to decide if you want us to get rid of your nuclear program or do you want to get it on your own. Well, guess who's giving all the Russia drones? Iran.
Yeah.
Now, if you find a way to take out that drone factory, that could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We'll see if that happens. I'm Steve Ducey.
All right. I'm having problems with the Rumble feed. I apologize. For some reason, this is the 3rd time it's died out. I'm not really sure why. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. This collagen is dual purpose. It's going to help with your skin, your nails, and your hair, but it can also help with your bones, your musculature, your joints. Do resistance training to build that joint strength and also improve your bone density. And
with collagen, take vitamin C and drink 64 ounces of filtered water, and it will cross-link and improve your dermal layer for your skin. So it's a dual-purpose product. You get a big scooper, take it every day, mix it with soft foods or just filtered water. Some people mix it with milk. Some people create a smoothie. It's up to you. I just put it in soft foods. It has a pretty extensive amino acid profile here. So you can see on the screen. Just go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can read the label more carefully. But the reality of the situation is it's dual purpose. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Take it every day and improve your different systems. If you spend $150 a product on my store, then you will get a free item until supplies last. But you can apply also discount 5 on any order and you get $5 off. It's discount, all caps, number 5, and you get $5 off. And again, if you buy a anti-aging box or a longevity box, they are built, the price structure is built with a discount compared to purchasing the products individually. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the great supplements that I offer, help support my work, and help support your health and wellness. Now, I want to, all right, Bloomberg right now is still in commercial break. So before we go there, the S&P 500 is now trading at 5,554. It was trading at as low as 5,488 this morning. So it is recovering. Let me talk about another stack here that's really important that helps with your musculature and your brain. So let's talk about the musculature first. Myotrol helps with gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle and help with your mitochondrial health. It has flavonoids, polyphenols, and lignans in this supplement to help with the gene expression. Do some resistance training and help to build up the muscle. Now, a lot of people don't realize that once you get to about age 40, you start to atrophy with muscle. It's harder to maintain muscle, and and as you age, you're just losing muscle mass. So you need to do resistance training, and you need to take Myotrol. Myotrol also stacks really well with Gladiator barley that I have on my store. Gladiator barley is a high-density protein that does a lot of things for you, but it also helps to build muscle, and it is synergistic with Myotrol. Also, it's really important to take Myotrol if you're an athlete, either younger or older. All right? Why? Because Myotrol will help you get those strength gains in your sport, especially if you take the Gladiator barley with the Myotrol. Now let's talk about the brain health aspects to the stack here. Clarity Factor helps to get rid of brain fog, and your neurons are going to be firing more. When your neurons fire more, you're going to think faster, you're going to have better memory, so Clarity Factor supports memory, and you're going to have that positive neuroplasticity. But it's dual purpose, right? You're being able to concentrate at work, and you're building the better neural connection. So if you're in school, at work, or even if you're retired, taking Clarity Factor every day is going to help get rid of that brain fog. And over time, what's going to happen is you're going to have the positive neuroplasticity. Your neurons are going to fire more. You're going to be producing neurotransmitters, and you're going to just have a healthier neural network. You're going to think faster. You're going to be able to remember things better. And when you have better cognition and you are taking the proper supplementation like Clarity Factor and learning new things and doing exercising, getting better blood flow by doing weight training and doing cardio, doing some stretching and balancing that activates neurons. All those modalities are really important for neural health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take the Clarity Factor. And stacking it with Myotrol, this stack is helping with your musculature to reduce the atrophying, and so you can
build muscle, especially when you're doing resistance training, and helping with your neural health. So if you do those 4 modalities of exercise, balance exercises, stretching, cardio, and resistance training, you're activating different muscles on top of getting better blood flow and building up musculature. And you're activating that cerebellum with balancing. And when you're stretching, you're activating different types of neurons that are at the ends of your muscles. So it's really important to activate all these different types of neurons. So take the Clarity Factor, take the Myotrol. This is a great stack to get healthy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You get $5 off if you use discount 5. And if you buy $150 worth of product, you'll get a free gift until supplies last. Okay, let's go to balance of power here.
On this hour at Morgan Stanley, S&P between 5,800, 5,900 at the end of the year, pulling it back. It's all about trade policy risks to growth, and that's why we're here today in Washington. Donald Trump remains the stock market. Maybe he does kind of like that. He can't like what he's seeing in the market, however. Then again, if you ask Peter Navarro, there's so much money that's about to come into this country, you can think about tariffs as tax cuts. Here's how he put it on Fox.
Let's work through the economics of this. First of all, we're going to raise about $100 billion with the auto tariffs alone. The other tariffs are going to raise about $600 billion a year, about $6 trillion over a 10-year period. And we're going to have tax cuts. It's the biggest tax cut in American history.
You didn't know that, did you? $6 trillion over 10 years. We'll be rich again, as Donald Trump says. And this is where we start our conversation with Jordan Fabian, Bloomberg's White House editor, with us at the table on a Monday. Jordan, welcome back. It's great to see you. There are several knowable unknowns as we go into Liberation Day, beginning with the fact that we don't know exactly which tariffs are going to be put on. We don't know how long they're going to be there. I guess we can add another. We don't know exactly what the impact is going to be. When you have Peter Navarro on Sunday morning TV talking about raising $6 trillion, that's the first time we've heard that from this White House. So what's coming?
That's the $3 billion question, right? There's a broad universe of options here, and the president has vacillated between all kinds of them. And so I think even to him, none of this is really finally decided yet. So for a long time, he was talking about these reciprocal tariffs, which would be a custom rate for each trading partner. That has now given way to what he told reporters Sunday on Air Force One, that he wants all countries to be tariffed, perhaps at a consistent rate, perhaps at a tiered rate, depending on how bad of an actor he sees different trading partners. And that's getting back to an idea he pitched during the campaign about universal tariffs, something that's much more sweeping in scope, perhaps. And they're all different kinds of questions. Like, he's put on auto tariffs already. Do those get stacked onto with these new tariffs? Or those incorporated? These are all questions a lot of people are trying to find the answer to this week. Not clear yet there are answers to be had.
Well, so that was my follow-up. You've covered Donald Trump a long time, 2 campaigns, his first admin, or our vaulted White House editor. Does he know what he wants to do?
It still appears that he's deciding. I mean, we don't know this for sure, but he's gone back and forth in his both private deliberations, as we hear, but also in his public remarks about what he wants, this quote-unquote Liberation Day to be. And so that's given investors a lot of uncertainty. It's given companies a lot of uncertainty. It's given foreign governments a lot of uncertainty. But I think what people should expect is a big swing at tariffs, the biggest swing that we've seen of his presidency. He seems, by all indications, to want to do this. He wants to go through with this. Whether there'll be exceptions later, that's a different question, but he wants to.
But you get the big punch in the face either way on Wednesday. Indeed, we start pulling things back. What do we know about this? I understand it could be a Rose Garden event. Is he going to be out there with lists of countries? How do you work through something so complex in a public media event?
Yeah, he's a president who always has a keen eye on what makes good television. And I'm not sure reading a list of 200 countries or something. I think that
big maps behind him, I guess.
Exactly.
Is there talk about optics yet, or are you not hearing about it?
There's always talk
talk of optics in this White House, and so I imagine they're going to be looking for something that delivers some kind of oomph. The White House, the Rose Garden certainly would deliver that backdrop of gravitas.
Yes.
But I think that the shape of that event is still being determined, and that will obviously be decided by what he's actually announcing. Like, is he, again, reciprocal versus universal? Is he going to hit more sectors? He's talked about wanting to do tariffs on pharmaceuticals, lumber, semiconductors, you name it. Are those going to happen on April 2nd or not? We don't know.
Going to run for a third term?
Sure wants to.
This was the talk over the weekend. Pretty remarkable stuff. He said a lot of things to Kristen Welker. A lot of people, he said, want to see him serve a third term. A lot of people want me to do it, but my thinking is a long way to go. I'm focused on the current, I guess referring to this term. He said he's not joking, however, about the possibility, suggesting there are methods to get around the two-term limit. Do you know about those methods, Jordan?
Well, let's level set that the U.S. Constitution prohibits a third term. So would seem to be a pretty tough obstacle to get around. One option, quote unquote, that he discussed was somehow having J.D. Vance run for president, winning, and then handing the reins off to him. No one seems to have asked J.D. Vance if he's wanting to do that.
Correct, yeah.
Not to mention if that's even legal.
This is how it was presented to him in the interview, right? This is the idea.
And I guess that's something that's being talked about by his advisors. But
all right,
look, I mean, this is just, we're in kind of uncharted territory here with the tariffs, wanting to run for a third term. There's not a lot of guardrails over there.
Well, it's kind of crazy. It's not even 100 days yet we're having this conversation. Let's see where we're at. Maybe a couple years in. With regard to the Signal group chat story, I don't know if we get another week out of this or not, but the Wall Street Journal certainly tried to go at it with Mike Waltz, as I'm sure you saw. There was an interesting piece in this story about what might be left. Two officials say Waltz has created multiple other sensitive national security conversations on Signal with cabinet members. Do you know about any of these? And could there be another development here?
Look, if the contents of those were to leak out to the public, it certainly would fuel the story again, especially if there's sensitive or classified information contained in those. I mean, there was another drop over the weekend that I guess the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was inviting his wife into certain meetings where sensitive national security information matters were being discussed. So, this is an administration that made it clear from the get-go they don't want to work within the existing parameters, and that includes, I guess, sharing of sensitive information. And so would not be surprised if more of that came out.
Can I ask, because people are listening to this right now, they don't know what your world is like. Are you getting Signal messages from White House officials, not with classified information, but just with as a point of contact with sourced information? Is this done all the time?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's pretty common for government officials to.
So they've got all kinds of reporters in their phones.
Yeah.
That you could fat finger in a chat like this.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely plausible. Whether that's actually what happened, I think is. That seems to be what people are saying, but
remains to be seen. Will we find out? Remember, they were going to put Elon Musk and a lot of smart people on this, right? Are they actually investigating it?
Having the National Security Council investigate itself, that would sort of indicate that this is not going to be the most fulsome investigation, but I guess we'll see.
Understood.
Yeah.
We're talking about Liberation Day, along with all these other things I'm making you uncomfortable about. What is this week going to go down as for this Trump administration? Like, this is the week of weeks, right? This is the big deal that he has been working on since the campaign trail. We can talk about border, mass deportations, but this is his favorite word in the dictionary.
Yeah, and look, this is a week that has the potential to really alter the global economy and the way it's been set up for the last 70 years. I mean, the U.S. has been on this track of, having a fairly open market, trying to work with trading partners, and this could change all of that this week, depending on how big it goes.
The markets are certainly factoring that in, right? Just take a look at Wall Street. With Jordan Fabian at my side, many thanks, Jordan. Great to have you back. Bloomberg's White House editor with a lot to work on. I think we covered about 7 stories there. Our vaunted White House editor. I think that was the word I was looking for. I'm glad you're with us. You're on the fastest show in politics. We're going to turn to Tick.
All right. Let me talk about a great stack to help with your neurons. NAD Plus is a supplement that you can take
that will boost up your NAD plus levels. Now, NAD plus helps by increasing your energy, but also it helps to repair DNA damage, either at the cellular level or at the mitochondrial level. And NAD plus helps to protect neurons. So taking my NAD plus supplement every day, and a great stack with this, you can take it separately, but it's synergistic. Ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can purchase. Ubiquinol will help to boost up your energy levels because it's helping with the health of your mitochondria. It's an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals and help with neural health. So when you get older, you need to protect your neurons. So take the NAD plus supplement to boost up that NAD plus levels and take ubiquinol together to protect your neurons. But not just proper supplementation, you need proper sleep to detoxify your central nervous system, but also you need to do different modalities of exercise. Resistance training a little bit, cardio, get the good blood flow going, stretching, balancing exercises. Those are all important to maintain good, healthy neurons. And proper diet and exercise is going to improve your overall health. But proper sleep is really important. You want 3 cycles of REM sleep a night. And by having that, you're going to be able to consolidate memory better. You're going to be able to detoxify your central nervous system, and you're going to be well rested. And so when you're well rested, you're bringing down cortisol levels. And so that means that you're bringing down that inflammatory response. You're calming down your central nervous system. You're going into parasympathetic, and that's good for your heart. That's good for your immune system. That's good for your overall bodily systems. So it's a holistic approach. It's about proper diet, exercise, proper supplementation, and all these other modalities that I just mentioned. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, take the NAD plus supplement to boost up your NAD plus levels, and ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can get. Really important to protect those neurons. When you're age 40 or older, you really need to protect your neurons. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
You're watching Al Jazeera. Reminder for our top stories this hour. France's far-right leader, Marine Le Pen, has been banned from holding political office for 5 years after being convicted of embezzlement. Le Pen was also given a 4-year jail sentence, but will not spend any time in jail. A judge ruled 2 years of her jail term would be under house arrest with an electronic tag, the remaining 2 years suspended. Israel's army has attacked Rafah in southern Gaza just hours after issuing a forced evacuation order for all Palestinians to leave the area. Israeli strikes have killed at least 34 Palestinians since dawn on Monday, including children. A week of national mourning has been declared in Myanmar after Friday's magnitude 7.7 earthquake. More than 2,000 people have been confirmed dead. Hundreds are still missing. Israeli forces have carried out.
Let's go back to Bloomberg here.
4.23% with a 2-year 4.89%. Gold is surging $28 to $31.13, up 0.9%. Spot gold now at a record, and West Texas Intermediate crude up 3.1%, $71.47 a barrel. The online mortgage provider Rocket Companies is acquiring Mr. Cooper Group in an all-stock deal valued at $9.4 billion that will create a mortgage giant that handles just about 1 in every 6 mortgages in the United States. And Newsmax shares first day of trading there, it is skyrocketing as much as 667% in its debut session after a $75 million IPO brought the conservative media outlet onto the New York Stock Exchange. Recapping, we got the S&P 500 index down 27 now, dropped there of 0.5%. Balance of power continues right now. Back we go to Washington once again. Your host, here he is, Joe Matthew.
All right, Charlie Pellet, I have to say I'm getting confused here, and I know that's not new. But about TikTok, are you kidding? This is the week, by the way. We talk about Liberation Day, Liberation Week, all the other stuff happening. TikTok, the deadline is at the end of this week. On Friday, somebody's supposed to buy it, right? Donald Trump even said so last night on Air Force One. He's been talking about TikTok a lot recently, though, and we know that there are a couple of groups out there trying to buy it. We also know, as we've been hearing and reporting directly to you on Bloomberg, that China, Beijing, would have to sign off on a sale of ByteDance or buy ByteDance or whatever the heck this is. So it remains kind of unlikely based on the experts we're talking with. But then Donald Trump dropped this curve here. He's good at that, right? We were weaving through a news conference in the Oval Office last Wednesday. Somebody brought this up. He was talking about tariffs, and he connected the two into one story made for Bloomberg. Trump says he's open to a China tariff cut to secure TikTok deal is the headline. Let's go back to that moment in the Oval. Listen.
If it's not finished, it's not a big deal. We'll just extend it. I have the right to have the deal and to extend it if I want. So we'll see whether or not we have a deal. We have a lot of interest in TikTok. China's going to have to play a role in that, possibly, in the form of an approval, maybe. And I think they'll do that. Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done. You know, because every point in tariff is worth more money than TikTok.
Wait, what? So the tariffs might unlock the TikTok deal. Is this all part of Liberation Week? Because we thought maybe there'd be an extension. That's what Donald Trump had suggested. And last evening, on Air Force One, coming back to town, we have a lot of potential buyers, he told reporters in the back of the plane. There's tremendous interest in TikTok. I'd like to see it remain alive. Then he went on to pledge that a deal could come before the Saturday deadline. What in the world? There's one voice here at Bloomberg we turn to when it comes to TikTok, because he's right every time. That's Matt Shettenheld, Bloomberg Intelligence Media and Telecom Litigation and Policy Analyst. Great to see you. Thanks for coming back in.
Joe. Thanks for having me.
Is your brain swimming in all of this, or do you have a sense of what the real news is?
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to know based on Trump's comments. Some pretty, firm comments there, but also some possibilities and probablys littered in there. So, but when you consider the complexity of finishing a sale of this app and the fact that China needs to be involved, it would really blow my mind if this all happens by this week. I think the most likely scenario is Trump sort of indicates there's movement towards a deal, and that justifies, he uses that to justify extending the deadline down the road again. But, the law is the law. Right now, this violates the law. All we have is an executive order, saying, let's not enforce the law. Let's pretend that doesn't exist. We're potentially talking about pushing that down further, making that, push off the law more.
So is it as simple as just another EO this week, or does he have to ask Congress to change the law?
Well, everything's changing. If you would have asked me that before this most recent EO, I would have said, look, the law is the law. The president can't change the law by executive order. And companies that host TikTok are undertaking enormous liability on President Trump's promise. Wow. But they did it. It's back in the App Store right now. And so that didn't stop them. And so I think there's reason to think that unless someone stands up on the Hill or maybe one of TikTok's competitors and files a lawsuit, but we've seen none of that. But until you see that, I think you see this get kicked, down the road again through an executive order.
Okay, well, this is a good read on things. And I'll tell you what, I'll remind everybody, that when we had that last deadline, Matt was the only person, not just at Bloomberg, I think in the world of covering this, who said the app will go dark this weekend. Everyone said, no, that's crazy. And it did, not for long, but you're right. It went down for a day because they were freaked out too, right? ByteDance doesn't want to break this law.
The liability here for the companies hosting TikTok is significant.
It's those hosting who are hosting.
Yes, exactly. So it's the Oracles, it's the app stores, Apple and Google. It's $5,000 per TikTok user. There are 170 million. So you do that math and you get to $850 billion in liability. And so there was reason for them to be concerned. President Trump and his attorney general, said, look, don't worry about it. We'll write you a letter that says you're not violating the law.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how, those letters aren't publicly available. I don't know how you can justify that, but they said that. And so, but I was wrong, though. I thought the companies would continue to be nervous about that until Congress changed the law.
Yeah.
I thought, Apple wouldn't put it back in the App Store, but they said, no, that's enough. We'll put it back in. And given that, I don't see any reason for them to reverse themselves unless someone files a lawsuit challenging this executive order.
We've talked about a couple of the groups who are interested in buying this, the Mnuchin Group. There's the Dennis O'Leary Group. How many are there? And is this idea of a sovereign wealth fund, the actual government bidding it, are any of these viable?
To me, it's very difficult to say. I don't have a lot of visibility into any of that. To me, the idea of a U.S. ownership interest in the social media app is more a complication than a solution, because you run into difficult First Amendment concerns if the government has an ownership in the social media app. All of a sudden, you're every time the company censors content or moderates content on the app, and all of a sudden that's U.S. government action somehow. Do we really want a First Amendment case every time? Yeah. We control speech on TikTok? I don't think so. So, not a lot of visibility on this. And the big thing, I think, is that, look, China it has a big say on this, and ByteDance isn't going to sell this app. Really, the U.S. has given up its leverage on this issue because it let that January 19th pass. And so that's why I think you need to see conversations about tariffs and these other topics, because the leverage tied to this ban isn't there anymore. TikTok's winning that fight.
We never heard back in our last one from Beijing on the idea of cutting tariffs to sweeten the pot here.
Right. I don't think we've heard anything definitive there, and so I don't have any visibility into how that's going to play out. But certainly as a legal matter, I think TikTok's winning the war here.
Well, thank you for the update, Matt. This is great. Matt Shedenheld, Bloomberg Intelligence, yet another voice of authority at BI, Media Telecom Litigation Policy Analyst. He's the authority on TikTok. And great to have Matt back. Kevin O'Leary, right? I said Dennis O'Leary. That's a whole different story. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. As we talk about markets, your reaction to the Trump policy, what's going on with regard to tariffs, is just another tough day here on the markets, although we have seen an enormous improvement since this morning. S&P 500 down 16 right now. The NASDAQ is down 186, much improved from the opening hours of trading. But I'll tell you what, Mike Wilson at Morgan Stanley is pulling back on his forecasts for the S&P 500 for growth overall. He talked about it earlier today on Bloomberg. Listen.
Everybody's looking for like a final piece here. This is gonna take time, and not unlike a lot of the other policies that have come out this year. Like this is what we kind of signed up for, right? I don't think what the president has done has really been surprising. All of the policy changes so far have been growth negative. And that, we've likened this to a new CEO coming in, right? They want to restructure the company. They're restructuring the company. They're going to kitchen sink it. And then they're going to try to make, their plan work for next year. So this is going to take some time. And, this level that we're in now is critical from a market standpoint, not so much from the administration standpoint. I think that's also something to acknowledge.
It's also very on brand for Trump to take a maximalist approach in the very beginning, but how messy could it be if he comes in with this maximalist, aggressive approach, and then we have retaliation from trading partners?
Well, look, this is the NAFTA approach. So, you said the best alternative to a negotiating agreement, and the BATNA, and that is classic negotiating tactic. You come in way over here to the right with the hope of kind of settling in the middle. So I don't think that's unusual either. The response from trade partners is that means they're engaging. Okay, so that's how you get people to engage in your discussion. You come out with a big splash. They have to come to the table, and negotiations begin. We're not even at the table yet. Okay, so that's why this is going to be very uncertain for a period of time.
I think some countries think that they are at the table because they sent a few representatives here the past few weeks, but I agree with you. It really hasn't started. So what do you do if you're an investor?
Well, you've done what we've sort of done. You avoid the areas that are going to be most affected. Consumer discretionary goods, and that area has been hit the hardest. So maybe that's getting a little bit extreme. I would say, defensively positioned, high quality. That's been our core portfolio. Now, we've made some trading calls lately that would have gone against that. Some of those worked, some of those didn't work. But I think at this point, you want to be up the quality curve. You want to be in businesses that can kind of mitigate some of these concerns. You have pricing power. You have the ability to kind of move production around. You can take inventory on to kind of buffer this for 60 or 90 days, which we've seen all of those mitigation strategies, something we worked about in our note today. So those are the kind of companies we want to own in this period of time. I do believe there will be a clearing event at some point this year, but we're not there yet.
Some of the changes you have made that aren't working, let's talk about them. International, DAX this morning, down 2%. Nikkei overnight, down 4%. International starting to turn. Subtle change from where we were over the last month or so. What's changing?
Well, that's right. And so last week's note, we kind of made the call that the U.S. probably does better than these other regions because at the end of the day, those regions you mentioned are most sensitive to global trade, particularly Japan. So the fact that was down 4%, I think, is another sign that, hey, actually the market now is laser focused on this tariff or trade issue as opposed to some of the other issues that it's been kind of worrying about here. So that relative value, if you will, still looks good to us. It may happen in a down tape. Okay, which is also something to consider because the U.S. is still the highest quality market in the world, and in an uncertain world, high quality will outperform.
Mike Wilson speaking to the markets on Bloomberg Surveillance on Bloomberg TV earlier this morning. Chief U.S. equity strategist at Morgan Stanley cutting his targets now, largely because of the Trump tariff policies that we're talking about. S&P 500 between 5,800 and 5,900. At the end of the year. Currently on Wall Street, the S&P is down 16 at 55.64 as the markets pull off their lows of the session. We'll assemble our panel next. We have much more to talk about that we haven't touched yet this hour. Elon Musk on the stump in Wisconsin ahead of a critical election, a statewide election tomorrow that we'll talk about coming up next with Rick Davis, Stephanie Murphy here on Bloomberg.
Race for critical minerals heating up right now.
Well, Adrian, as we've already pointed out, there's a number of push factors coming from the industries where there's a huge amount of rising demand for them, particularly renewable tech, digital, but also the defense industries. But why now is a particularly interesting question because, of course, when we look back in time in 2015, when the Paris Agreement was signed, we already knew that there was going to be a huge rise in demand for these minerals globally. However, it seems that Chinese industrial strategy was already on the track to becoming one of the big players in all of these supply chains. And they took the Paris Agreement very seriously. They saw that there was going to be ramping up of demand for these. And so they were able to put themselves vertically across all of the supply chains for these really key minerals for these industries. Whereas Western nations kind of relied on market forces and they didn't invest in quite the same way. So they were a bit falling behind in that race. And that's something that's really become acutely obvious in the last few years.
What do you make of President Trump's decision then to ramp up domestic production of these rare earth minerals? Does the US have enough of them in the ground? And is that going to help the US stop its over-reliance on China?
I mean, let's be clear, America is a very resource-rich country. There are a lot of minerals there. But first of all, many of those minerals are located in areas which are of huge, significant importance for America, either biologically or culturally. And so it may be that it's not in their interest to dig some of those up. But nonetheless, they don't have all of the minerals that they need for their own economies and technologies. And so at the moment, it's really imperative on America to be going out and doing what we term friendshoring, which is essentially talking to other countries which are rich in the minerals that they need and establishing relationships which will allow them to be part of that supply chain. It's a little bit converse to what we're seeing with the discussion in America and other countries at the moment, which is slightly more aggressive than we might think of when you need to be friends with countries which are rich in these minerals.
Is that exploitation, though? Particularly when it comes to nations like the DRC in Africa?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly an exploitative element to this, and it's not just DRC. We've seen that DRC have been approaching America potentially for a minerals deal in order to help them with their own military situation in the east of the country. But Ukraine is a very prime example of this as well. The US seems to be capitalizing on the situation there, offering essentially aid for trade. but it's part of a broader model. These aren't the only countries which are in the US's sights. Obviously, we have Greenland, which, in fact, there is no military reason there for them to be engaging, but the proximity is potentially a threat if they were to annex that, and Canada too.
China also has its eyes on, did you call it friendshoring, with nations in Africa? So you've got potentially these two superpowers competing for the same rare earth minerals on particularly the African continent. Is that going to spell trouble in the future?
Yeah, I mean, the friend part of friendshoring is really important here because actually when it comes to these resource-rich nations, countries, particularly in the continent of Africa, are kingmakers when it comes to these minerals. And so ultimately there will come a time when they're going to be able to pick and choose from the best of what's on offer. And that's why a friendly approach is really important. And what does a friendly approach ultimately constitute? Well, probably high ESG standards, higher than potentially the Chinese companies are offering. Because it's really going to be up to these countries to decide ultimately who is going to be there to exploit those resources, how they work together. But also the value addition piece is really important. The Chinese model up until now has been very much based on extracting the minerals and taking them back to China where the value is added through production and then eventually manufacturing quite often. And in the future, I think it'd be quite important to resource-rich countries that they see some of that value staying in the country and that some of the production, potentially the manufacturing, takes place there too.
Okay, you've got the US and China then racing to secure as many of these rare earth minerals as they can. China in the lead at the moment. Where's the EU in this race? Is it still on the starting line?
It's a good question. I mean, obviously, the EU just over a year ago passed its Critical Raw Materials Act, which was its own answer to, I suppose, the US's IRA and the China's Belt and Road Initiative, with the idea that it would help ramp up domestic production, but also diversify supply chains. Is it on the starting line? To a certain extent, yes, it is. Only this week we've seen the European Commission release a list of what it calls strategic projects, which are projects within the EU which are going to receive backing from the Commission in one way or another to fast track. And we haven't seen the list of strategic projects which are outside of the EU yet. I suspect that that's partly because, of course, it's a much tougher conversation with countries which are outside of the European Union to decide how it is that you'll take projects forward. But in terms of being on the starting blocks, I think what's really important in the EU context is that the European Union's ESP has always been our high climate commitments, our high environmental commitments. And until the EU really starts to capitalise on those, I think it will remain on the starting blocks because it simply doesn't have the same financial heft as the US and China. And what concerns me at the moment is that it's not really walking the walk in countries such as with the DRC, where it has the Memorandum of Understanding with Rwanda, which kind of demonstrates that those ESG standards aren't really high on the list of ambitions, and also in Serbia, where there's currently protests against lithium mining, but the EU is still going ahead with its agreement there.
It's been really good to talk to you on Counting the Cost. Many thanks indeed for being with us. Emily, I understood there in Boston.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, when it comes to rare earth metals, it's going to be whoever procures the resource is going to do well in the future economy. That's for sure. Now, let me talk about a supplement that's really important to take every day. All right. Gladiator barley or heirloom barley. Why? It's a high density protein. This barley is something that you cannot get at the grocery store. All right. It's high density heirloom barley. All right. Now, the product heirloom barley will help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation. That's important for your immune system and your cardiovascular system, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. Take a scooper or a half a scooper every day and mix it with soft foods or filtered water. Some people even make a smoothie out of it or mix it with milk. It's up to you. And the other product is Gladiator barley. Now, the differences between the two are basically this. Gladiator barley gets all the benefits of heirloom barley, but you also get strength benefits. So if you're an athlete, young or older, take Gladiator barley to build muscle. It'll help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation. That helps with your cardiovascular health. That helps with your immune system and helps you to recover after your workout. So take Gladiator barley
if you're younger or older athlete. It also has superoxide dismutase to soak up free radicals, really important. All right. Now, if you're older and you're not an athlete, taking gladiator barley and doing some resistance training is going to allow you to build up muscle. That's important. This couples really well with myotrol, because myotrol, as I was saying earlier, myotrol helps with the gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle. Gladiator barley is the high density protein as the building blocks to build that muscle. So when you take gladiator barley, you're going to see muscular gains, even if you're not an athlete. But if you are an athlete, taking it as a pre or post workout nutrition, really beneficial. Okay. Now I also have a product called Boomer Boost. Now Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. It's extensive. You know, you can take the time to read this. And this powder you take every day as for breakfast or for lunch. Mix it with soft foods the same way you would do with the gladiator barley or the heirloom barley or filtered water smoothie. Take it every day, breakfast or for lunch. And what you're going to notice is that you're going to have a very steady burn of energy throughout the whole day. You're going to be able to sleep better. You're going to have more mental acuity. You're going to get rid of that brain fog. And this targets multiple systems. It's targeting your cardiovascular system. It's targeting your brain function. And it's also targeting strength. So in addition to those three systems, it's going to boost up your energy levels. So you're going to have more ATP and your metabolism is going to be sped up. So you're going to lose weight. You're going to start noticing the effects of this within 72 hours once you start taking it. Take a full scooper each day, once a day, either breakfast or for lunch. The cost of this container is much cheaper than what you're spending for a month for breakfast or for lunch. So you're going to save money, you're going to get healthy, and you're going to lose weight. Now, you can stack this with, you can take it separately, or you can stack it with gladiator barley or heirloom barley. Now, the benefits of the stack is that you're going to be able to control your A1C levels better. Plus, you're bringing down inflammation, you're detoxifying your body, soaking up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. Now, if you take this together, the gladiator barley and the Boomer Boost, you're getting all the benefits as you were getting from the heirloom barley. But with doing resistance training, you're going to gain strength even more. This is a great way to fuel your body pre or post workout if you're an athlete. If you're not an athlete and you're older, taking this is going to help you in many different ways. Doing proper exercise, proper diet, taking this supplement every day, a scoop of this a day, a scoop of this a day, take it for your breakfast or lunch, and do some resistance training. You're going to gain muscle. You're going to have energy. Your metabolism is going to be revved up. You're going to improve your cardiovascular health. You're going to improve your brain function. And your metabolism is going to be sped up. You're going to lose weight, and you're going to be controlling your A1C levels. That means you're going to control your blood glucose levels. It's a very powerful stack. So take this every day, get healthy. The cost of these two containers and doing proper exercise is going to pay you dividends later down the road. Most chronic illness in the United States is self-induced. People don't want to hear that, but lifestyle is a big part of it, a big part of why we have the crisis we have with cardiovascular health or cardiovascular disease and diabetes in the United States. You can reverse it in most cases. So go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, take the Boomer Boost, take the gladiator barley, take charge of your health. It's really important, but you got to do it. You know, people can tell you how to do it, but if you don't do it, it will eventually catch up with you. All right? You don't want to be a patient that is in heart failure. You don't want to be a patient that is in the late stages of diabetes leading to kidney failure and heart disease and all this stuff, right? You don't want that. Then it's too late to reverse it. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Gladiator barley, get the Boomer Boost. It's a holistic approach. I've been saying this for many broadcasts here. And get healthy. Now, I have a box called the Longevity Boost Box, where you can get your choice of barley, Gladiator barley or heirloom barley, and you get the Boomer Boost. It's at a discount, built-in discount price. It's cheaper to get the Longevity Boost Box than it is to purchase the Gladiator or heirloom barley or the Boomer Boost separately. All right? So it behooves you to, if you want to stack, get the Longevity Boost Box and use discount 5. Now, if you purchase $150 worth of product, you will get a free gift. All right? I'm not going to tell you what the gift is. And, please take advantage of that offer, $150 or more, and you get a free gift until supplies last for the gift. But it behooves you to go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products that I offer, get healthy. Follow this holistic protocol, and you will start noticing that you have more energy, your systems are performing better, your immune system is performing better, your endocrine system is performing better, your brain function is performing better, you're getting better sleep, you have more energy, more vitality, and you're slowing down the aging process. And you're soaking up those free radicals. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Pain trail, and we should note that Wisconsin's Attorney General did weigh in on this last minute bid here. The state Supreme Court turned down the Attorney General and allowed Elon Musk to go ahead with the giveaways to people who could prove that they were voters. I want to get into Florida here, Rick Davis. This is really an interesting moment. Stephanie Murphy mentioned Democrat Josh Weil. He's raised 10 times more than Republican Randy Fine. And this is a district in, of course, MAGA Florida that Donald Trump won by like 30 points. We don't really believe a Democrat can win this, do we?
We believe a Democrat shouldn't win this. A district like this, as you point out, that's a Trump plus 30, it should be a walkover. But you also point out that Weil raised $10 million while the Republican opponent, Randy Fine, only raised about $500,000, made up some of the difference by writing a $600,000 check just recently, finally got on the air, right? Just this last week. He's finally showing that he can put up some TV ads. I mean, it is a disgrace for the Republican Party that we have these two specials, because in the old Matt Gaetz district, the Republicans been outspent 10-1 also there. And so where's the failure in the system? The Republican National Congressional Campaign Committee hasn't raised money for these people. The White House thinks that we really don't need these two seats. I mean, like, what's going on? I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. It really took Tony Fabrizio to write a memo saying, hey, we could lose these seats and get creamed in the midterms if we're not paying attention to what's going on in Florida. And my guess is it's pretty late to get in the game, but the good news for Donald Trump and the Republican Party is that, the demographics are hard to get over.
Joe, a very different district in Florida, and I would just love to hear from you if this is a matter of the candidate or something bigger that's happening in a district that seems, like Rick is pointing
late to realizing that he's in trouble, and you're seeing the money start to pour in and try to help. But at the end of the day, Democrats win just in overperforming in this race. If they actually win the seat, then even better. But I think they're going to win the narrative coming out of this to say that, look, the Trump administration and Republicans are out of touch with Americans. They are increasing costs. They're not lowering prices at the grocery stores. At the same time, they are governing in a way that is a bit chaotic, texting military attack plans on Signal. I mean, there's all kinds of examples that point to this administration not delivering on what they said they were going to deliver on, and now they're going to pay the price for it at the ballot box. And so Dems just have to overperform in this for them to win the narrative on this race.
You start wondering maybe what would have happened if the DCCC invested in that district. We're going to talk, by the way, more about the Signal story that Stephanie Murphy alludes to. Really interesting take today in the Wall Street Journal about Mike Waltz and what might still be on his phone. Rick Davis, do you believe in moral victories if the Democrat outperforms in Florida? Is that a story, even if it's not a victory?
I don't know. I think it points out the significant difference between a member of Congress like Stephanie Murphy and a political hack like Rick Davis, where winning matters. I don't think there's such a thing as a pyrrhic victory. You lose, you lose. You don't get that vote in Congress. You don't get to manage that district. You don't get a seat at the table.
Let me do another stack here before I end the transmission. Resveratrol, really important to soak up free radicals. It helps with mitochondrial health, and that will help to boost up your ATP levels. Resveratrol also helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence. That's important to rejuvenate certain tissues that can be rejuvenated by adult stem cells. And resveratrol stacks really well with NAD+ and ubiquinol and C60. All right. So take resveratrol every day, slow down that aging process, and to get more youthful gene expression in your tissues. Now let's talk about C60 for a second here. C60 you can get in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, or avocado oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. It is cheaper per ounce to get it in the higher ounce configuration. It's at a discount. Now, C60 is a very potent antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals. C60 is a molecule. It's a fullerene. It's a 60 carbon molecule that is suspended in an oil because it's lipid soluble, and it allows you, and that will allow you to absorb it properly. So it has to be suspended in a lipid. Take it on an empty stomach for best absorption. If you work out, take it before your workout so you can recover quicker, and it'll soak up free radicals that you're producing during your workout. Now, what you will notice is that when you take a teaspoon a day, every day, that you're soaking up those free radicals and your energy levels are going to be going up. Your health of your mitochondria is going to be going up. So the stress in the cell is going to go down because there's less free radicals. The cells and the tissues are going to perform better, and therefore your organ systems, your endocrine system, your immune system is going to be more robust. This also helps with neurons. The health of your mitochondria in your neuron is very important. By reducing the stress in your neuron with reducing free radicals by taking C60, you're going to soak up those free radicals, less stress on the neuron. It's going to help with the mitochondrial health. There's going to be more ATP for your neuron. You need lots of ATP to produce neurotransmitters and to have these neurons fire. And when you have more healthy neurons and you exercise, get better blood flow, learn new things, talk to people, read and write, talk to people in the real world, you're going to have better neuroplasticity. And when you have better neuroplasticity, when you have positive neuroplasticity, you're going to think faster, you're going to remember things better, and your body is going to perform better. Because you've got to remember, your neurons control your muscles. Your neurons control your balance. So the healthier your neurons, The better your balancing, the better your musculature and body coordination, and the better in terms of cognitive function. So please go to my store and get this C60, either in avocado oil, MCT coconut oil, or extra virgin olive oil. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. Your energy levels are going to go up, and you're going to be soaking up those free radicals. There's going to be less stress in your tissues. And also, you're going to see that your body is healing, and you are slowing down the aging process. And so you're slowing down the aging process, and your body's healing, so you're slowly reverting back to a younger self. All right? You can't become an infant, obviously, but you can slow down the aging process and allow the body to heal quite a bit by taking C60. Now, it's a holistic approach. Again, proper diet, proper exercise, make sure you filter your water, stay away from processed foods, clean your environment, detoxify your body, do proper sleep, exercise by doing resistance training, stretching, cardio, and balancing exercises. All are very important. Get enough sleep, get 3 cycles of REM sleep. And when you do these holistically and you take the proper supplementation, you're going to slow down the aging process and boost up the health of your body to the best that you can. Now, it's better to do this and to try to build your body as best as you can as you move into your geriatric years. And that way, in your geriatric years, you're going to have more vitality. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. The links are in the description of this video and all my videos. Go to my store and get the C60 and stack it with resveratrol. This is a great stack. C60 also stacks really well with NAD+ and ubiquinol. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. If you purchase $150 or more on my store, you will get a free gift until supplies last. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. I have done the best that I can to tell you how to stack these things where it's affordable and you get the most out of the stack based on your budget. Thank you for listening. This is the end of this transmission. Hopefully I will be able to do another transmission tonight. I apologize for some hiccups with Rumble. I'm not sure why that was. But thank you for listening. Remember, I have X Spaces live streaming on these shows. You can ask questions live if you want by just going to my X channel and requesting the mic. Thank you for listening. The ones that have been watching me on Rumble, thank you. For the ones that have been following me on my website, thank you very much. And YouTube and X Spaces, I appreciate your viewership. So this is the end of the transmission. Please have a nice day. Hopefully I'll see you tonight.